phone, like I had gotten right to the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I got
I have one more sample of that kind of thing that I'll give out in the review session. It's a little bit crazier because when you'll see my answer sheet, instead of just straight lines, some of the lines had to curve around, but where you've got more than one dependency.
Okay. But schedule.
Yeah, for doing a network diagram. Okay, well, I'll start us off. While working on an external project, your customer asks you to perform some additional tasks that are not included in the formal contract. You should, these answers, C is a good answer, acknowledge the request and advise the customer to submit a formal change request. Contracts always have things built into them for changes. How do we handle changes? Along with in our projects, how do we handle changes? You want to do number 2?
You are managing an internal R&D project. The initial test results are very poor. You are afraid your management might cancel the project. This could reflect poorly upon you and the team. Verification testing could be done quickly and inexpensive. You should, let's see, inform management immediately and recommend testing.
Yeah, C is good.
As a project manager for a very large and highly visible project, you may request release for approval before the expected to approve without comment. To review, identify the major discrepancies regarding the project financial estimate may lead the intended as the project manager. Your responsibility to be
That's, yeah, probably not the best one.
Hey,
Yeah, A is a good answer for that. Again, I want to be proactive, but if they're asking us to throw in some junk, sorry, no, can't do that. Your project is running out of cash, significant work remains. You are directed by senior management to instruct your people to use another project's charge numbers while working on your project. You should, well, no, these are not bad, but what they went with was understand the background of management's instructions before taking any action. And I
That's
was,
what I had a hard time with it though.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, it says you're directed by senior management, it's like we're just following instructions that they give me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But then in real world, it's like you can't discharge to somebody else's project. You know what I mean? So I guess you need to try to understand
Yeah,
where they're coming from with it before you make any
Mhm.
action.
yeah. And that's something that in some companies is allowed, other companies it's not. So that's why let's understand what they're saying here. If we were in one of those companies that didn't allow that, okay, time out here, and that's not going to work well. And at UPS, sometimes we had some things where we'd actually save some hours, and we just found out later that wasn't what we're supposed to be doing. When it was a time when they wanted to keep us under overtime for the part-timers, well, anything over 4 hours, anything over 5 hours was time and a half. And so what they did, which I found out later, really quickly after that, wasn't really legal. What they did was bank some of our hours when we worked 6 hours, and then when we worked like 3 hours one day, then they would add in some of those banked hours.
So they weren't telling you that, you didn't know that anything over 5 hours was time and a half.
No, we knew that, and but it was at a time when it was on high. They were saying no overtime.
So
So actually, we were getting screwed a little bit.
yeah, because I was gonna say when they bank their hours and just try to like make up for a short day, you weren't getting the time and a half.
Nope.
It was just straight
We were
time.
just getting straight time.
Maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like,
How much is how much time? Yeah. What now? Is it?
Yep.
Yeah. You are working in a country where it is customary to exchange gifts between contractor and customer. Your company code of conduct clearly states that you cannot accept gifts from any client. Failure to accept the gift from this client may result in termination of the contract. The action to take in this case would be C, contact your project sponsor and or your legal or public relations group for assistance.
Yeah, C's good.
Right? During your assignment as project manager, you had a new member of your team project team. This new team member was recently hired from a competitor and offers to share a substantial amount of proprietary information from her previous company. This information will put you and your team in a very strong position for future business. You are aware of the non-compete clause in the private condition of employment. You should not have trouble with this one. I know some of these are probably more practical done one way or the other, but it looked like you could easily do A, accept the information and agree to keep it confidential between you and the new hire, or you could ignore the offer to share it and then just move forward. But I went with B, I'm sorry, that's the more likely. Review the condition of employment with the new hire and advise her to reconsider her offer.
Yeah, B is probably the best thing to do. Yeah, it's good one.
That's the same kind of thought process I went through when I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An example of conflict of interest would be, I want the A here. I think A is a good answer. As a public official, you make a decision about a contract award that will benefit you personally. That's a conflict of interest.
Each of the following describes the use of an ethical approach except, I want to see, accepting gifts in exchange for favoring one contractor over another.
Yeah, C is good.
Which of the following situations describes the violation of my professional code of conduct? I went with D, disclosing information to a customer about a situation that may have had hurt.
That's a violation, or is that a good thing to do?
And that's a violation.
I think what they're trying to get at there is that maybe the customer needs to know about what seems to be something that's not quite above board. Not sharing secret information or anything, I think. What they went with in this one, I lost my place. Oh, never mind. Was using confidential information to advance your personal position or influence on a critical decision. So they went with B.
Okay, so question this.
Yeah.
Even where I came from, you always ran into situations where you would know what's wrong. So there's always stuff you should know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you act like you don't know because you're not supposed to know. So where's the line?
I think
When it says to advance your personal position or influence a critical decision, because you're influencing that based on the confidential information. Just look at it as if you didn't know that confidential information. You wouldn't be able to use it to advance yourself personally. Personal advancement is separate from the company.
yeah.
Although it could be within the company, it's kind of.
Yeah, and I can see where if we're giving the customer copyright information or proprietary information from our company, that'd be a problem. But here it's talking about there may be a appearance of impropriety. So I think they're kind of saying, it looks like there might be something wrong here that we need to discuss with them.
I struggle with that one.
Yeah.
With D as well.
Number 10, in order to balance the needs of many stakeholders involved in your project, the most desirable method to achieve resolution of conflicts would be or D, collaborate.
I put the, oh, it's D. Why would it be, because I was in between compromise and control, I never even thought collaborate, because I was thinking, like when you have stakeholders, it could be, like you say, a huge project where you have stakeholders everywhere,
Mhm.
right, all around the world, let's just say, like, if it's a huge project. How would you collaborate all of those? I would think you just control it and make the decision, but I don't know. What's the
Yeah, I
logic
think
behind it?
we'll get to this in the resource management section, I think, too. But kind of the way PMI thinks is, well, dictating, okay, that's forcing, that's Steve Jobs' way maybe, but we're doing it this way at Apple, and then no questions asked. Sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah.
One of my managers cracked me up. We talked about working with this team was like herding cats. And I had not heard that. I guess that's probably an old phrase, but
Mhm.
I hadn't
I
heard
never
it.
heard of it.
No, so it's cats. These people are all over the place. And you had to be very directive with them, saying, okay, here's what we're going to do,
Mhm.
and really kind of rein them in a little bit so they just weren't all over the place.
Mhm.
So, and compromise the way PMI thinks is okay. Is sometimes the best thing we can come up with, but both sides had to give up something. So they consider it a lose-lose situation.
Mhm.
Collaborating or working together, kind of coming up with a good solution. Hopefully, it's more like, yeah, we come up with something everyone agrees on. It's more like a win-win situation. So they kind of see it in that kind of hierarchy. Control. Well, I guess that's more like, it sounds more like a maintaining thing. Okay, let's. Um, Actually, I don't think control is going to show up in our resource management section, but
Mhm. So collaborate, because I was thinking when you said control, I know that like in some situations, and with this, I was just thinking about the stakeholders as being huge, a lot of people.
mhm.
And in situations where you're working with a lot of different people, it's hard to collaborate,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
it's probably impossible to compromise, because everybody wants something different. So I think, that was just me in certain situations, you just have to control some things and just say, this is the best way to go about it. This is gonna make it easier for me as a project manager.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the older quiz, I'm just going to look at this real quickly. It actually had a different word in there. Collaborate's the one that's used in the book. Oh, it had confrontation.
Oh, Lord.
And confrontation, I kept explaining it and telling people this is what it was, but when I searched Pinbach and searched Rita,
Mhm.
that word was not used. It's like,
Okay,
oh, we shouldn't have that, but collaboration is used.
so in this one though, what was the answer in the other one since
Uh,
confrontation?
confrontation was the answer in that
Yeah.
one. Which, was always one of those questions we debated and argued about.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, well, you know what? And then I looked up, I searched for confrontation in the books.
Mhm.
Not in there. Okay, time out here.
Okay.
Let's revise that one. Collaborate, though, is a term that they use. Okay, we're going to work together to try to come up with a solution everyone agrees on. Most ideal. Doesn't happen all the time, but that would be great if we could get there. Number 11, I forget where we are.
Yeah, I did too. Is my turn?
Yes,
Okay. In order for the project manager to fully and effectively understand a stakeholder's personal concerns or grievances that are a source of a conflict, it may be necessary to, I wasn't sure about this one, I went with B, schedule a project review session with the entire project team.
Not a bad thing to do, but if it's just a personal thing for that one person, and this is where my old empathy, listening skills workshops and stuff came in. Empathy is kind of the idea that you can tune with that person, but you're not. Empathy and sympathy, I always saw as different. Sympathy, you cry with the person, you'll rejoice with the person, but you can't help them that much. You're just kind of joining in with them. Whereas empathy, you're able to tune with them and understand, but still be able to help them. So you still have a little bit of separation, so you're not just crying with them and not able to do anything. So I think what they're getting at here is the C, attempt to empathize with the stakeholder, trying to understand their feelings, their ideas, what's going on, why do they have these concerns and grievances.
So let me ask you this, when it says, to understand the stakeholders' personal concerns or grievances, that are a source of conflict? I guess, I mean, just reading too much into the question. I assume that it's a source of conflict with the team.
with the team. And it might be, and it may be after we do C,
So it's
we might also have to work with the rest of the team.
Gotcha.
Yeah. First thing though is really trying to
Work with that
understand and,
person.
you know, what's going on with that person, see what's, we make sense out of it.
As the leader of a project team, the project manager may be required to assess the competencies of his or her team members. Occasionally, some weaknesses or areas for improvement will be identified. The project manager should, as selected B, communicate with those weaknesses and establish a performance improvement.
Yeah, B is correct. In that case, I think the other ones are not so good. They, at least in this case, they didn't throw them under the bus, I don't think. Oh, no, they did. D is throwing them under the bus. Yeah.
Terminate.
Just wait for them to fail, and then you're out the door. 13, project manager must be an effective communicator to ensure that the project stakeholders receive and understand project-related information and status. Prior to delivering the information to the stakeholders, the project manager should attempt to, and this is something probably we should have done early on, but they went with A, research and understand the background and experience of the stakeholders before transmitting information.
With 14, as part of your project plan, you must develop an effective method of communication for your multinational team of stakeholders. You have several choices of media available. The appropriate action to take in the development of the communication plans would be to, I had a very extremely difficult hard time with this one.
Yeah.
So I went with C, use multiple forms of media to ensure that everyone receives the information.
May be good. But what they went with was actually A, discuss the available options with the stakeholders and obtain their input. We might end up using multiple forms. I think it's another one where, what do we do first? And what do we do next? Yeah.
The integrity of the project manager is often challenged by stakeholders who attempt to use personal power or influence to change the scope of the agreed upon deliverable. In these situations, the project manager's most appropriate response would be, I went with between B and so agree to change because customer satisfaction is a goal regardless of cost, or determine the risk and reward for implementing the change before taking action. Now, I'm sorry, would seem the most logical, because, if they're making it personal and they just throwing stuff at you, and if you don't take some point to step back and do some sort of assessment rather than do what they tell you to do because they put you under this pressure, you could be making a worse mistake if you're making mistakes at all.
Yeah. I think this sequentially is another one of those too, though, where we're talking about, let's see, it doesn't specifically say we got a contract up there, does it? But of the, in the question doesn't say we've got a contract. A, though, refer the stakeholder to the process of change documented in the approved contract, I think was kind of the idea, maybe even before we look at the risks and rewards. Or, you know, well, customer satisfaction is important, but not at any cost. So B is kind of, it's close, but not quite there.
But don't the stakeholders, aren't they already privileged to, first they should know that you might need to make a change and put in a change request. They have been given the charter, so they know pretty much kind of what's expected, because they understand the deliverables. They're throwing this at you in a way to compel or force you to change.
Yeah.
So, and because they're empowered to do so, not because there's a reason for it. I mean, at least the questions like, you know, they just go something wrong.
I think it's one of those, we probably would do D after pointing them off to change request process.
So we're
Because
going
they're just throwing stuff at us, want to change this, want to change that, because I'm more powerful, because I can. Okay, put in a change request, I think it's kind of what it's getting at here.
Okay,
Then we probably would look at D, what are the risks and rewards? How will this fit in? Do we have enough money? Do we have enough time? The other factors that might be involved with that, analyzing what those changes would actually do. Not just throwing them in because they want them. It doesn't specifically say those stakeholders are our customers, but they might be. Let's see, 17, wait, 16. During project implementation, the client interprets a clause in the contract to mean that he is entitled to a substantial refund for work recently completed. You review the clause and disagree with the client's conclusion. As the project manager, which of the following actions should be taken? In this case, they went with B. Document the dispute and refer to the provisions of the contract that address interpretations and disputes.
Before reporting a perceived violation of an established rule or policy, the project manager should, point D, convene a meeting to review the violation and determine the appropriate response.
That's good. I think what they wanted to go with first, perceived violation, it almost sounds like that rumor kind of thing. So they wanted to go with B, ensure that there's a reasonably clear and factual basis for reporting the violation.
Oh, perceived, okay.
So what do we do first? Let's make sure that that's a real thing and not just he said, she said kind of thing.
we checked on 15, we went with A, correct?
Yeah. 18.
Oh, I'm sorry. Project managers can contribute to their organization's knowledge base and to the profession of project management most effectively by, and I selected A and ruled out the other for developing and implementing a project review and lesson learned process.
Yep, A is good.
And I'm sorry, again, 17 was the third one.
17 was B.
B.
You receive a contract to perform testing for an external client. After contract award, the customer provides you with a test matrix to use for your 16 tests. Your vice president of engineering says the customer's test matrix is wrong, and she will use a different test matrix, which should give better results. This is a violation of the statement of work. You should, in this case, they went with D, ask the client sponsor for clarification on which matrix to use for testing. And it throws it back at the client, I guess.
An effective method for improving an organization's project management knowledge base is through A, coaching and mentoring.
Yeah, A is correct. As I mentioned, with the ethics kinds of questions, most of the time, do the right thing, or what's the logical thing to do. Usually straightforward. It was interesting in Fast Track, there isn't a separate thing in Fast Track on ethics questions. So it'll be kind of mixed in with cost and integration and scheduling. That being said, though, it seemed like integration had a lot of the ethical type questions in there.
Okay.
So when you're looking at chapter 4 in project integration, of course, that's dealing with us as things that we own as project managers. Probably we're going to run into a lot of that. Now we're near the beginning of book 2, quality. Wayne was asking about this, and I may need to change this in the schedule because it may be a little confusing because I talked about part 1, 2, 3, 4, but we only have 2 books now. And it's because originally we had 4 books, 4 smaller books. Also, wanted to combine them. So we combined them, but we didn't change. So the first book is part 1 and 2. The second book is 3 and 4.
Okay.
So that's still in there. But I know that can be a little confusing.
Well, at least I know.
What's that?
I said, at least that now.
It's called part one, part two, and get rid of the 1, 2, 3, 4s and note to self, change it for the next schedule. And this is actually right near the start of it. Wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm off here. That was last class, right? Yeah, that was last class. We're supposed to be on resource management, a little further in. It's a little bit out of order. Because the ethics section was further into our books. Resource management. So we've got a couple planning processes, plan resource management, so plan the plan first thing again, estimate activity resources. Then under execution, they've got these three: acquire the resources, develop the team, and manage the team. Last version, this was more focused on the HR side of it, and it was actually called human resource management. They realized we're not covering equipment, materials, whatever we might need for the project. So really covering all the kinds of resources. That being said, though, these two, the last two, are really working with the team, develop the team, and manage the team. And then 9.6 will be in managing control, controlling the resources. Here's a picture of everything. Too busy and hard to read. Here's just a picture showing in planning, executing, managing control what we're going to have. In my magnet sheet, I had got goofed up on that because these used to say develop project team and manage project team. I had to take that word project out of there. So they didn't just change, add a couple processes and take away a couple. They renamed a bunch.
So they would take our project team because resource management kind of goes beyond just the project team.
Yeah, and this first one used to be acquire project team, something like that. But then they said, oh, wait a minute, we got to really include all resources in there. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about still is towards the team side of things. So we need to have individuals that have the skill sets that we need, so we can assign them to specific roles. What we'll be doing a lot of times is putting some effort into getting the people we need, managing them, motivating them, and looking for ways to empower them. Physical resource management then is concentrating on, getting the materials, equipment, supplies that we're going to need to get the project done. Some different resource management things. Lean, just-in-time manufacturing, Kaizen, which is the idea of doing little bits of things to improve our processes. Total productive maintenance, something I wasn't familiar with when I was doing manufacturing, but it's kind of tied in more with improving how we're doing the production work. Theories and constraints will come in here some. And we want to use whatever the tools are for doing this work. I think I mentioned this earlier, but emotional intelligence used to not really be talked about in any industry, but I think it's talked about in business a lot more now, which is about really helping people manage their emotions, both me personally, but also my team members. And I think that's where that empathy thing comes in a little bit too. How can I help my people not just be stressed out or depressed or overwhelmed? Well, they may need more than me to do that, but in some areas, though, it can help them to get back to more normal.
In my old job in Kansas Acute Engineering, the CEO was really big on emotional intelligence, and he gave us our classes, he gave us a book on emotional intelligence. But management, it was,
show.
but, well, thank you very much. But the managers, it was kind of more focused on them, they actually gave a copy of the book to everybody, and we would go to some workshops where they talked about emotional intelligence and how it's just kind of focused on relationships and how the relationships with you, people you work with, and things like that, it really is one of the core things internal. Yeah, it was really one of the core things internal. They say it's not necessarily the workload, and things is kind of like how people are treated, which kind of makes them stay to leave,
Mhm.
you know, and being emotionally inept to them and kind of understanding stuff like that kind of helps to manage people, makes things a little smoother. That was the whole gist of it. But,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things, even in the older days, they would emphasize having the team work together. Well, how do you help the team work together? Well, part of it's dealing with their emotional state, if they're upset or frustrated or whatever it might be. And I think that's sort of a newer thing, like in the last decade or so.
So, and obviously, because I look at how my contextual framework is, and I'm hearing terminologies like that. Even the place I worked last, they talked a lot of that stuff. Their brand, their mission statement, but it was so far away from that in practicality.
Yeah.
It was, I don't even know why they said the words. I mean, it looked like they just wanted to go through the motions to make it look like, we're doing what we need to be doing, but, we care. You know. So if this organization you were with, when CEO came to produce or presented a book, it was on emotional intelligence. That's a leap if you ask me, because I don't see a lot of companies doing anything more, much more than really just give lip service to a lot of stuff.
And that may be true. I know when I was at UPS began to realize they were having some troubles because they were truck drivers and inside operations. Beautiful woman who walked by the people loading trucks and start hooting and hollering and whistling. And it's wait, we got to deal more with what they called at that time was more about diversity. Since we had such a mixed group of people, all nationalities, all races and stuff, that they realized we can't be just truck drivers hooting and hollering. Because that did make some of a lot of the clerks were women, so that made them feel a little uneasy. Right? There were a couple of parading, but that was not, that was more the exception. Yeah. I think we'll get a little bit more on this, I think, in the slides to come up. Yeah, you're right, though. There's probably a lot of lip service in a lot of companies. I think the companies like Google, some of the more progressive, newer companies, may be doing a lot of this, making the environment for the people to be comfortable, and then how do we deal with problems when they come up. But yeah, probably the rust bucket type companies, the older companies, that are, we've done this for 30 years. Why should we change now? Oh, we just had more people quit. Time out here. Maybe that's something to look at. In more of the agile type world, self-organizing teams emphasize quite a bit. So in that environment, we as project managers be coaching and mentoring the team more and helping them make decisions. A lot of times the team makes a lot more decisions than just us as project managers, which is, even in predictive projects, we should be getting the team involved. Right? I'm not the guru of all knowledge or something. So if I try to solo it, we've had some quiz questions like that. I put together 39 risks. Okay, great. Maybe there's 60 risks, but you did it by yourself, so this is some of the others. Virtual teams, distributed teams. I watched a little webinar the other day about agile type teams, and they were talking about how it's a problem in a way, if you get a scattered team. But I think with all our media communications things now, with FaceTime, Google Hangouts, we use a tool called VC, capital VSEE. It's the same kind of thing, where we can all log in together and see little pictures of each other. I think that's breaking down that idea that you have to be all in one room, co-located, which was one of the main principles that the agile groups like. That's great, but with what we can do, logging in together like that, it could be.
It's productive. It can be productive.
Yeah. Some things to consider. Well, diversity. That's what I just mentioned it about UPS. Location of the people, maybe some industry-specific resources that we're going to be involved with. How do we acquire team members? And then we're gonna be managing the team, and what life cycle approach are we taking, with predictive or more of the agile approach? Uh, and in agile, you do focus more on really working together, that collaboration idea again. And
So, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Give me your definition of an agile approach as it relates to what agile is. I mean, I just want to kind of grab the concept.
agile, really having the team, ideally having the team located in the same place, working together. The typical way, and we was a little bit about this in the introduction section, you have a leader, sometimes called a coach, or a scrum master, or a project manager. You have a product owner, and you've got a team of people that a lot of times have a lot of cross-functional skills. You may not have it, I think, the more traditional way. We got engineers here, we got designers, we got software developers. A lot of companies might be more silo oriented. So we've got this team that can do a lot of things together. They work very closely together. Collaboration, working with the product owner could be our customer. Sometimes it is the same thing. Working closely with them all the time to come up with, here's the list of things you want, the requirements you want. And we're just doing little bits of work, so as we knock out that little bit of work, the customer says, well, I want to reorder things a little bit. I'd rather have number 22 in our list next. Well, it's easier to readjust it then. So that what they've discovered is really got started in software development. It's kind of expanded beyond that. But in software development, what they began to discover is by doing it this way, they're actually much more productive and efficient getting work done and syncing up with what the customer really wanted. So it's more like these little bits of work, constantly revising our list and prioritizing, working with that customer or product manager. And so, in 6 months, they might accomplish a lot more than we would in 6 months with a more traditional, let's do all the requirements up front, let's do all the work, all the testing. We'll have to cycle back because we missed some things. So I think it's more of a focus of this team really working closely together. Like I say, in more of the traditional model, we might be more of the people kind of leading and guiding along, whereas the project manager and the agile team is probably more like a facilitator, coach. We ultimately still will be responsible. I think PMI kind of emphasized that we're still the project manager, so we'll still have to be in charge overall, but we're delegating a little bit more decision making to people.
Because I haven't been in an agile or adaptive environment, so listening to that, I'm trying to understand it as well. The agile methodology, would that more apply to maybe projects that are shorter span or longer span projects?
Good question. I'm not sure. I think you could do it with any.
Okay.
Again, it really got its origins in software
It
development.
depends on, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And software development, if you look back at our first book and everything, we've got either the Agile Manifesto and had 4 main points of the meeting, and they had 12 ways of putting it to work. So that little section at the start there will kind of help. Actually, that's in the Agile book that we've got too. What was I going to say?
So, I'm thinking, you're familiar with Visio, for example, right? So Visio is sort of like you can use it functionally like building a hierarchical representation in the organization. But at the same time, you might even just splatter stuff in each block one way, one thing or another. But then you look at it from a distance and it starts to take a certain shape. And you start thinking, what I did this block, whatever it is, in this block would look better or work better up here because this whole team of everybody that does this other thing they're going to collaborate with this person down here anyway. So if we put them in the same place, that's going to reduce the kind of time that it takes for them to correspond or correlate or do whatever they need to do together. So if I use that representation, is that kind of what Agile, I'm not in the ballpark? If you you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, even in traditional projects, we should be working very closely with our end users and customers. I think the main difference, one of the main differences, and this is what they talk about early on, in doing the predictive models, we're more interested in are we on track, are we on schedule, are we on cost? So we're controlling things a little bit more and looking more at just maintaining this schedule that we put together and the cost. Whereas with Agile, they're looking more, what did we produce? So it's more of a, in this 2-week period, we produced X amount of work.
And what execution.
Yeah, so it's more focused on what did we produce rather than keeping track of the schedule and processes and stuff.
Okay, because I know, the environment that I came from, I was thinking about, like in our phases, when we had our deliverable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our first deliverable could be
Mm-hmm.
and then they did the client. Then if there were any issues with that deliverable, you have to go back and backtrack and fix it.
Yeah.
But then that would, of course, have an impact on the next phase of the work, because sometimes the next phase is predicated
And this being
on
done.
the first phase
Yeah.
being done and how the second phase can start. So I'm just trying to think of that, taking smaller pieces, maybe 2 or 3 weeks in, and having someone that you're kind of looking over this with, as product manager, would make it more efficient if you had someone kind of looking at it throughout instead of waiting. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
wrap my mind around it.
Doing
Maybe in
this
a
whole
3-week
bunch,
increment
then
or
doing it.
2-week, right, instead of waiting 6 or 7 weeks down the line, because things could get pushed, then you're doing everything for the review period, then going back if there is change.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm trying to talk my way through understanding.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's hard in a lot of companies is that senior management doesn't get it. It's a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
We have this 6-month schedule, you're gonna do this much work and this much cost. How are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
And if you say, well, we produced this much product, they're gonna go, well, that's nice, but how's your big schedule going? And even in Agile, like, usually you have like maybe an end limit there saying, we're gonna do X amount of work, and we'll still have that due date. And
Mhm.
whatever we can produce in 6 months,
Mhm.
we'll get that out. And in reality, maybe more or less than what would have been in the predictive model. It seems like a lot of times it's more. Able to produce more by doing these little chunks of work, doing them well, complete, and then adding more to it.
So you will have somebody in that environment then, thinking about that philosophy, so you would have someone who's on the client side who you're dealing with. I guess in the perfect world, you would.
That's why they call it either the customer or the product owner.
Okay.
It could be an internal person doing this work, or it could be the outside client that's a product owner. Here's what I want. Oh, change my mind now. I want something a little
As
bit
we're executing, kind of looking at things as we're doing,
Yeah.
have a little small intermediate.
Mhm.
Kind of, okay.
So like with your 6-week thing before you had that review,
Mhm.
perhaps 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks,
Right.
constantly reviewing it with the end user customer.
Mhm.
And if you can tweak it a little bit as you're going along, maybe, oh, this first bunch, that's great, second
Mhm.
bunch, really good. Can we do this or add this into the third
Okay.
2-week section?
Okay.
But by the time you got to the end of that phase of work,
Mhm. The
might be-
deliverable was complete, the work that was on.
yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. A little bit more about Agile, the idea of accelerated integration, making distinct things. Because we're doing these little bits of work and what they call retrospectives, where we're reviewing with the customer or the end users, we're doing that more often. So there's better chance of having good communications, sharing knowledge. I mentioned about provide flexible work assignments. Again, if we got a team that's kind of cross-functional, we may still have specialized people, but with a cross-functional team, a lot of times, Bill's sick today, that won't necessarily slow us down because somebody else would pick up what Bill would have done. So some topics we're going to go through, typically, the inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs. We'll look at different organizational structures, sources of power for us as project managers, different leadership styles, some some motivational theories, some conflict management techniques. Here's some challenges we have. Many companies, especially if it's more of a project-oriented or projectized kind of organization, we may only have those people temporarily, and then they're going to go on and do other projects or go back to the functional team. So that can make it harder to build good relationships with them. That second point's got to get at that churn of stakeholders. Maybe not just internally, but nowadays it seems like people are coming and going from companies all the time. Say millennials go to a new job every 5 years, now every 2 years.
I didn't even think about that yet, how that impacts the project that you're working.
Yeah.
I've experienced that. And
New
you're like,
people. gotta
what
bring up to
happens to the
speed.
person? And they leave and then they get a new person that's probably working on maybe they're reviewing deliverables or, cost or whatever. I've had a couple people leave in between projects and then they have to get up to speed.
Yeah.
So you wait for them to get up to speed. They're asking you questions, now you're teaching them how to do their job at another company. Okay, well, let's go over it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then they get up to speed, and then you have to get on their program, right? Because they do things different than the previous person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's that learning curve.
The learning curve.
Then they have different ways that they want things delivered to them. And then they stay for a year, and they leave. Or, the turnover could be that maybe they got a promotion to different. And then you get another
It seems
person.
like a lot of people are doing
Yeah.
it. Because I'm working on doing this thing to learn this skill, and when I get it, I'm
Oh,
going.
yeah.
Yeah. It was funny. When I first started at Motorola, you could see this like countries like China and India in particular.
Mhm.
The middle class was growing there.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people would come to, say, Motorola, work with them for 6 months,
Mhm.
and then move on. Because they could put that on their resume, and they would go to another company and work at Motorola. Oh, must be good. And so they were constantly doing that kind of thing, jumping from company to company to get promoted and get a better job. Wow, that's great individually, but that also made it more chaotic for those companies along the way.
Yeah, I have looked up, millennials when they start and it's like I'm right on the end at the beginning, so I'm like, I don't think I'm a millennial. However, I understand both. Yeah, but I understand both, but see, my frame of mind is because I've been working for so long, I've been working for many years, and looking at how things evolve and how they change. And as you're interviewing, as you get, become more experienced, right? And you're like, I think I interviewed some, I don't know, maybe years ago, maybe it wasn't interview, but someone told me that long term on a job is considered 2 years.
2 years.
I said, 2 years. Yeah, because people are constantly hopping around and they go somewhere, like you say, for the experience, to the one. They say you spend the first year learning, the second year perfecting, and the third year you move on. And the third year you're moving on, meaning that within that company, this is within that company, you expect it to go up, right? Advance. And if they're not gonna give it to you, you go to somebody who will. And I said, really? So first year, second year, third year, and you just want to be a CEO, like really? But it's just a new frame of thought. That's the way that they think about it. And your resume is respected better. I've been interviewing. I went to an agency and I was talking to a guy about my resume and I forget the name of one of them. I was talking to some of the people, but he said employers like to see that you work in different places because you have different things to bring to the table. You've got experience in different places. Yeah. Oh yeah, you got experience in different places. You work with different systems because everybody does something different. You have a good collaborative nature on how to bring things to the table instead of just being a person who's been somewhere 15 years. And I said, I kind of I don't have a little hard time.
Yeah, there's some
I get it, but
advantages or disadvantages.
Yeah.
15 years at one company, you may have gotten a broad scope of
Right.
experience,
exactly.
but they think you just did one thing over and over and over.
Most people don't though. On the job 15 years, you move around. Most people went from this position to this one to this one in different capacities. But I kind of got off on a tangent. But
No, that's good.
Stuff changes
It's
all
kind of
the
interesting
time.
too, because I know like my father's generation was supposed to be cradle to grave. He worked for this one company for
Right. Exactly.
in Japan, that was that way. Now, Japan even began to change when dad would have been with one company except World War II got in the way. So he worked for Swift before the war. He ended up working for International Harvester after the war. And he was with Harvester for 25 years. So that was his company. I thought, well, that's great. My generation, well, I was with three main companies. So a little bit different. And of course now, you know, like you're talking about, if you're with the company for 2 or 3 years, your resume is going to be funny too, because you're going to have this much work experience.
Yep.
Sometimes recruiters don't want to see that stuff from 30 years ago.
No, they don't.
They want to see what have you done recently.
But it's a very different way of thinking about things and the way the expectations are. It's like, you have to look above.
Yeah. We have a young friend who was adopted sort of by a good friend of mine at our church, was kind of like one of the church leaders. And the kid graduated from Illinois Champaign, very smart. He's done nothing for basically 2 years. Now he's 28. And he's finally beginning to go, oh, I need to get a job.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Kids are staying at home longer too. You know, a lot of, especially when we kind of had that 2007, 8, 9, when the economy kind of crashed, not 8,
well, 9, 8,
9, 10. You know, it's kind of different now, but you have a lot of kids who stay at home longer. That's, you know, when the insurance changed to 25. I was like, no, dad, can you go for 18? You know what I'm saying? But, you know, they're staying home longer because they can't find jobs, they can't find employment. It's kind of changing now. But it's just the way that, you know, when I started working at those ages, I've been working since I was like 13, 14, I had a job. Even if it was just like a little seasonal summer job or whatever, I had a job. I used to always hustle. I used to try to shovel people's snow and sell stuff, you know, but it's like different now. My daughter's 14. I asked her the other day, and she's a cheerleader. She's pretty devout. She's really smart. She really does really well at sales and advertising. And I asked her, I said, you know, what you gonna do this summer? And she was like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, friends, you know, blah blah blah. I said, no, you're gonna get a job.
what did you like? What are you talking about? You from
Job.
another planet?
Yeah, a job. And I'm like, yeah, sister, you're gonna be working this summer. And she's like, why? I said, well, for one, more than likely I'll be back working. 2, you need something to do. You know, I said, cheerleading doesn't start back up until about the fall.
Yeah.
I said, you'll have a couple of months, just run rampant, run to your dad's house and here at your grandma's house, beg people for money all the time, and you gotta get a job. And she just, so she'll be 15 next month, and I told her, I said, have you ever heard of a work permit? She's like, just we'll go talk to your counselor. So she came and she's like, oh, mom, you know, I can work. Started doing research, but you know, I told her, you don't have to work, they have to have something to do, but I want to teach her some responsibility, you know. But it just never occurred to her. She says, well, my friends aren't looking for jobs. I said, well, I'm not your friend's parent. You know, but it's like, it was just, they don't get the concept. It's like they're in the social media world and they look at this Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook and they look at all of these things and they see these glamorized lifestyles that people show, right? And they think that that's
the norm.
That's the norm. You know, they think that, oh, I can just wake up and be beautiful and rich and buff one day, and you know, that's all I have to do. And you know, it's a warped reality. You know, so it's like they don't totally different. It's like they don't think about things the same way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've experienced that. You got some grandkids coming up, so.
I got some grandkids. Yeah, my sons are all working, doing work and stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, my youngest son is revisiting what he's been doing because he's been doing a lot of part-time things.
Okay.
And really wants to get the full-time job. So that's good. Maybe,
but it's just different. The mind frame and what they think, what they want.
I mean, even when he graduated from college originally, he's a geology major. Well, he could have gone off and done fracking in North Dakota, what some of his buddies did, and didn't really want to do that kind of thing. So he did some other stuff. He's working with a small company that does crop yield calculations. So this kind of weather, this much water, this kind of thing. And that was good. It was still a part-time thing. And he's done some other part-time jobs. finally
There's a big
realized.
demand for that, what he does, is a huge demand for
There's
it.
some out there, yeah.
Yeah.
But he realized too that he still needed to get something more full-time. We were kind of anxious for him because when he graduated, he could have gotten a full scholarship for a master's in math at like Western Michigan and different schools. He decided not to do it at the time. Part of maybe the mindset of some young people now, too, well, I could do that.
Why don't you just wake up there?
Yeah, wake up rich. That kid I was telling you about that finally realized he needed to get a job was kind of thinking like you were mentioning, I'm just going to go out and become the CEO.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, you have a college degree, you know how to do programming, that's great, but you're not going to be at the same level as these people who've been working at 10, 15 years.
They just want to come in and run everything.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Just want to be a CEO. Great, start your own company.
And they get there and lost, like, oh, wait, they see the moving pieces.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a little
Their
different.
eyes
than they
begin to
thought.
open up. Seeing
Yeah, when they actually get in the workforce, it's like, oh, it's like an aha moment. Like, oh, it's not as easy as I thought. But
Yeah. Some of the challenges again, I got partway through the list. Variety of skills and backgrounds. Oh, that's good. Interpersonal conflicts, conflicts of interest, cultural challenges, pressure and stress. Now, the millennials may not know there's pressure and stress until they get that job.
no, they're stressed out before they get there.
Yeah.
They are ridiculous. I hate to talk about them, but they're ridiculous.
When while you were gone, we were talking about her 14-year-old daughter not planning on doing a summer job.
Did you work some jobs at 14?
Oh, yes, I did, but let me tell you, I had students in the school. That's where their mind was. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And they saw people walking around, like basically giving instructions to directors and stuff. And they said, "What do you do?" "I'm the director of this." "I want to do that."
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
It took me 20 years to get to that.
And they just directly see you, oh, I can do that, and I can do it better. And don't get me wrong, you probably could, but it's gonna take you a little while.
Yeah.
You have to get there.
That's the piece that they don't even, they don't know the tread they need to make in order to get there. They have no idea. They think it's, and we really do. All they have to do is go to college and graduate, and then the rest of it is just gonna fall in place.
All in your life.
Right. And I told this one guy, I said, "Look, he worked for me the whole summer." And he said, "I can't wait." And he's in college. He says, "I can't wait to start making the big money." I said, "Look, I'm still waiting on it."
It's the big, yeah. They don't
So don't
understand,
think you just go.
but they think that.
It's another one of those things where maybe an added class about your future and work.
Right.
You know,
Reality
like in high
class.
school, even for seniors in high school, that's what you need to be realizing.
Reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my daughter told she has a good job. She'll be 15 next month. And she does cheerleading and all that. And so I asked her, I said, what you plan to do this summer? You know, I'm thinking outside of, hanging out with you. Be bad, down on bed and finding money all the time. What do you plan on doing? And she was like, no. I need a job, sis. And so, she was like, job. And I told her, I said, well, you can work at 15, because she makes really good money. And I said, it's got something called a work permit. You can work at 15. She's like, really? I said, after counseling. So she went and got the information. Long story short, she's preparing herself mentally to get a job. But the reason why I want to get a job is not necessarily that she has to have it, but to teach her some responsibility. Right. And to teach her to have something to do. And she did a questionnaire last night to work at Cane's. I don't know if you all know what that is. The chicken tender place, Cane's. And they were asking, don't you know the scale when you actually agree, disagree, slightly disagree?
Oh, yeah.
Neutral. Whatever, neutral. So it was 6.
Yeah.
And it said answer honestly. So of course it's the first assessment she's ever taken. She's like, I'm going to, it says, I come to work happy every day. I come to work with the expectation of it being a good day every day. She's like, disagree. I said, no.
Yeah.
And she's like, it says answer honestly. And it was so funny because it's like she's a teenager. And teenagers are kind of like, I no nonsense, no BS type of people. It's like, it is what it is. You know? She's like, gonna be happy every day at the job. I'm like, well, all right. And say that because you want to get the job.
Yeah.
But she went through the whole assessment and it was just, I was cracking up because she was going through the questions and she like, disagree. Right, no.
You mildly disagree, but don't. Yeah, not
And it
right
was
on the
with
street.
things like, are you serious? But she's never worked before. It was so funny, but I'm like, what are they gonna do with her?
Wow.
But she got all the team players, right? Cause she's,
Yeah, yeah.
anyway,
So the inputs from the plan here, I mentioned quality management plan and scope baseline coming out big time. Schedule, requirements docs, risk, and stakeholder register. I printed up something that's a handout actually from our old book, kind of drilling into the enterprise environmental factors. Lots of different things. I like this from our, I probably can bring it forward in the new slides, but it's not in the new slides, but it kind of talks about, it breaks down a little bit more, what are we talking about when we say organization or technical disciplines. Ask some more questions on those things. OPAs, physical resource management, safety issues, policies, procedures. Just like a lot of our other areas, we're going to be looking at those older projects and historical information a lot of times to maybe copy or bring forward some of the good things that were done in those past ones. Tools and techniques. Experts, our experts, taking our original requirements and figuring out what kind of skills or equipment, materials we're going to need. Looking at the roles we're going to need for the people side of it. Level of effort on different activities, number of resources. You may remember when we did the schedule thing, 10-day activity with one person, okay, it's going to take 10 days. But when we double up, add more people or more equipment, those activities will shorten. We have some guidelines for getting the staffing. A lot of times we can look at what we've done historically. Did HR help us out? Were we able to get outside resources, contractors for short term if we needed them? And there are some risks involved with getting staff. I think in my world, that was one of our main risks. It wasn't equipment or test equipment, stuff like that. It was getting the people. And that was even when we didn't have as much churn. But those people in India that would work in the job for 6 months and go off to some other company. So we did have some of that. We'll be using different kinds of charts. They mentioned like the WBS, maybe an org chart, resource breakdown structure. And we'll see some different kinds of assignment matrices. There's two that they mentioned, RAM and RACI or RACI. We'll have some examples of those coming up. A little bit about organizational theory. We need to understand, and I think this is a good discussion about millennials and stuff. How do people, what are their expectations? How do they act? What are they looking for? And that'll be different depending on the kind of people, sometimes in different cultures too, how people react differently. But here, even in America, we're talking about maybe 2 or 3 generations acting differently on doing work. Here's an example of a RAM, responsibility assignment matrix, is what RAM stands for. And it's just showing different roles and who's going to do the work. And these letters represent these 4 things here. Who's going to sign off on it, who's accountable for doing the work, who's participating, who's reviewing. And you see as project managers, we're accountable for the plan. We're going to be reviewing requirements and design this other work. Client manager, basically signing off and agreeing to whatever we're doing. This is one way of breaking it down. This is a RACI, which is a form of a RAM. I call it RACI, I guess you call it RACI. And here those represent these 4 things: responsible, accountable, consult, or inform. And here we've got the different work to be done or who's going to do different things and specific names for people. We sometimes get this question, what's the difference between being responsible and accountable?
that's
Is that your
exactly where I
question?
was going. Yes, what was the difference between, because responsible and accountable, and if you consult someone, you think they're informed of like, how do you do this thing?
I guess that probably gets down to the individual company and industry, but you probably have to maybe define these more specifically. Does responsible mean that's the person actually doing the work? So is Ben actually creating the charter? And Anne is like maybe
Accountable, making sure it's done.
yeah, or maybe she's doing the work and Ben's like the sponsor or something. So he's going to sign off on it.
Mm.
I think that needs to be defined probably a little more carefully in each one. I don't think they're going to ask you too many questions about defining those, but just being familiar with these different kinds of matrices that we could have. Matrices. Here's a staffing chart, and originally I thought this was by month, but really it's by quarter. And it's showing the amount of people we're going to need over time. And it's in terms of like the project manager, 1.0, well, that's 100% of one person probably. It could be a variety of things. Like in my world, like when we get down to the senior developers and junior developers, they mentioned 2 and 10 eventually out in that second year. We often have people working on multiple projects, so that 10 for the junior developers might be 30 people actually. They're working, a third each on that, something else. This is helpful though, and we'll see this later for resource optimization too, where we can kind of balance off our resources.
Look at it as FTE, full-time equivalent.
Full-time equivalent, yeah.
Because that one person could act like that half a person, like under business analyst in July. Half a person, that's not necessarily half a person, that's just 4 hours of 8 hours a day.
Right. So,
or if it's a week, it's just part-time, as opposed to full-time.
Yeah, that's why I say, like, with all of these, that's the full-time equivalent. That's good. Forgot that term. It's a good term. So, like, with the 10 junior developers, it could be 15, 20 people.
Yeah.
And the equivalent hours
of being, to break the time down.
Here's the resource histograms, kind of similar to the other one, but now it's showing hours per week. And this is helpful, again, when we're doing our leveling and stuff in the schedule. We really peaked out here the second week of January. Maybe it's better if we try to stay around that 175 to move some of this work out into February here where it dropped down. My goal, this was important because we could burn our vacation in January for the previous year, and we can only carry over like I think 1 week. So a lot of people, if they didn't burn it all in December, were burning it still in January. So we would want to peak out that second week probably. We probably want to level it off. The outputs of this would be our plan, resource management plan. We identified the resources we're going to need, how we're going to get those people or equipment. On the people side, roles and responsibilities. Who can do the work. We have some special skill sets on certain activities. We'll probably represent this in some kind of org chart. And on the team side of it, we're going to be talking about how do we decide who we're going to need, get the staffing we need, manage the people, and then ultimately release them towards the end. And there may be some training needed for certain people. I mentioned at the bottom there with that question, we may go through a lot of iterations to get to this put together. And in my world, that was often true of the churn or of the teams working on other projects, or not having the people available. So we got the resource management plan, which will include team development, how we're going to control our resources. Rewards and recognition is going to be important. Team charter. Team charter is mentioned in Timbuk. And I kind of like this because it wasn't actually in the last version. So I've actually got a little handout on the team charter side that goes through, what are our values going to be, how we're going to communicate, how do we make decisions within the team, deal with conflicts, the guidelines on our meetings, how do we set them up, do we have specific agendas, start and end times, those kinds of things. And
this is what we have in college, when we were talking about this before, this is what we have for each project, that's each other. We have to come up with
We didn't exactly have something like this, but I can see where this would be really good. And get the team together and they all agree, okay, yep, this is what we'll do. I'll stay with it, basic ground rules, for how we're gonna do our work. Yeah, it's a good
The
thing.
bachelor's degree, it wasn't as much of a document looked at, but when you got to the master's degree level,
Mhm.
this became so important. Because you collaborate in different ways. What we had to do, our papers that we do, you couldn't have people slacking off. So you could refer to this document, it's like a body, it's like, look, I advise everybody to read the team charter. You'll get everything that's in there and understand it, because if you don't perform and do your part, just read it. And it became a go-to document versus just assignments to.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
an effort that you all had to
Oh,
work on.
yeah, absolutely.
Produce.
Yeah.
So there was a piece in there on the last slide, the training, and that's not the first thing we do. So is that the typical thing that's built in, and then who's responsible for that piece? I mean, how did, when you find a piece for this, an individual or something like that, where something askew, not being where it is, and maybe the person that's accountable, responsible, not holding up their end, just not doing what they need to do. Um, So if there's an assessment that something training is required, where does that fall?
The way PMI thinks, I think it falls under us. We may have a training department or some other group that helps improve the skills for those people that aren't quite up to snuff. I think we'll see this a little bit later too when we're talking about developing the team. We know that we got some people that are slacking in certain skills. What can we do to bring them up? Maybe that we can mentor and do some internal training. Maybe it's going to be that, this guy needs a class in software development or specific coding and stuff. Or maybe we don't have I think we're kind of assuming this is the group that we end up pulling in. Maybe they don't have all the skills, and okay, what can we do to help them? We have, like in my world, we had Motorola University, we sent people there, we did some training and stuff. So we had some internal things. We actually brought in outside instructors too to train on certain things. Let's see. Oh, we might have updated some things too. Assumption log and risk register. I assume I'm going to get the 20 people I need. That's an assumption. And if half of them are still tied up on 5 other projects, that's going to be a risk. In my world, a lot of our risks had to do with not having the people we need, or the capacity to do the work. They're working on 12 other projects. That kind of thing. Behind that too is estimate activity resources. So this process of estimating the type and quantities of resources we're going to need on each activity in work packages and schedule. So types of resources. And I usually think about people, but it could be equipment, materials, supplies, whatever we're going to need for each of those activities. And this ties in real closely with estimating our costs. This process actually used to be under schedule. And then he moved it over under resource management. So I think it makes sense here too. That being said though, that schedule shows what people, what kind of equipment we're going to need for each activity. And we're going to cost those things too. That's why it's still closely tied in with costing.
And that'll be a part of the cost management plan. This ties into the cost management plan.
It ties in
Well, the
with
project management.
estimating project costs. So that would be the end of cost. Would we estimate costs? 7.2. So we're tying real closely to that. We put together a cost management plan. As we're putting together our costs, each activity and stuff, we tie into that. And here we're talking about quantity of people or equipment we're going to need for each activity. So let me go one more. So we got resource management plan, scope baseline, activity attributes and lists that we're putting together in our schedule side. Assumptions log, cost estimates, initial cost estimates. And as we're doing this, we're probably going to revise that more. Resource calendars, risk registry. Enterprise factors, are we all located in one place or scattered? Who's available? what skill sets are there, what's going on in the marketplace. A lot of times we need to bring in contractors, that can be important. Or we've got third-party vendors that help us, but they're tied up on other work. And a lot of our historical information can help us with putting this together. Some things to consider. On the team side, we have some good leads and a bunch of good workers, reviewers. We have some introverts that are good and productive, but they don't like being in the big crowd. Or vice versa, we got some outgoing extroverts that can derail the meeting and slow it down because they just want to talk. What skill sets do we need? What's the capacity or capability of the resources in the pool available? We have some policies for the organization that will help us or hinder us. What have we done in the past? So historical information and resources, both for the people and the equipment side of things. We'll probably end up putting together some sort of staffing matrix. And, equipment, materials, facilities, what are we going to need for this? So a lot of things to consider. Tools and techniques. This may look familiar. Well, expert, of course, top of the list of smart people who have done this work before. Bottom-up estimating. Good for coming up with good estimates. Analogous and parametric are those two more top-down kind of approaches. And data analysis here, I think, is looking at different ways we can do the work, or working with people from. My world, a lot of times, do we do this work in Dallas, or do we do it in Poland? And Poland, a lot of times, had more capacity, so their skills were pretty much equal. Let's do the work in Poland. We didn't worry as much about cost, but I'm sure that the cost of Polish were probably less. We're more interested in just who had the capacity to do the work. We may be using some of those project management information system tools. And then, of course, probably having planning meetings while we're doing this. Outputs of this will be the resource requirements, types, quantities, resources we're going to need for each activity. Maybe some updates to our assumptions, availability of getting people either inside or outside the organization, or equipment. What was the basis for our estimates? Resource breakdown structure. We're going to have two RBSs. I think I might have mentioned this, but I will mention this. The two RBSs I don't think will be confused. One is resource breakdown structure, and the other is risk breakdown structure. But I don't think on the exam they'll crisscross those. I think it'd be obvious if we're talking about resources, we're talking about risk. And they've updated some of our documents, the activity list, the attributes, resource calendars. Here's the resource breakdown structure. I think it's interesting because I used to think it'd be just more like the people side of things, but it's actually, they've got everything that we're going to need for the project. So it's people part, but then the materials we're going to use, equipment we're going to use. So it's kind of bringing in everything that we're going to need for each of the activities in the project. Now, in execution, we've got three processes. But I think we're due for a break here. Okay. Quick slip out, but let's take a break before we jump into this.
Well, you know what, this, I don't know how to develop my Is that something they, I don't know why, that developed. I mean, that,
you had your doctor's
Right.
first, like,
Right, right. So then she called me 2 weeks ago and said, okay, I talked to one of the funders about your application. So I want to make any promises, but because they're now calling me and asking me questions, so that's the sign. So I said, fine. So she sent me an email Monday night, like 7, 8 o'clock at night. Came through. This was Monday night. I wanted it Tuesday, but I'll be back Wednesday. And I'm I don't want to, like I said, I didn't
you
want
should be fine, because I think that once you get the approval, I think it takes them 5 days or something to generate the document. And I know you got, you know, Thursdays, or like Friday. She'll send you the voucher. She'll probably send you a copy of all she has the information. She knows how much you pay, so she might send it to you.
Yeah.
And then when you get the voucher, you have to come to the time, you can send it back to her.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the process, but yeah, once you get it through, I think it takes like 4 or 5 business days.
He did tell me. I mentioned nothing about it.
Because he's gonna let you say.
That's what I told him. I didn't tell him. I said, but I did mention that he allowed me to come and visit, watch a session. I didn't say like come to class.
Yeah.
So I left.
Yeah.
Like, but I was
He has
not.
a way of seeing it.
Well,
He's the one telling me about voucher. And I was like, bro, that's why my people were down like, a week and a half ago. He was like, yeah, I'm not seeing anything. So I in turn called my coach, my career coach. I'm like, yeah, down at school told me he doesn't see anything in my book. He doesn't have a way of seeing the system that comes from something like that. I didn't even know that he told me this thing. I was like, it's hard to go inside my paperwork. I just didn't follow up with it. Long story short, I didn't have paperwork. And so after I listened to it, I kind of had to back and forth. But I asked him, I said, I took my paperwork to you on October 3rd. I said, you told me you turned it on November 14th, which was one day before the due date. I said, so it sounds like I got caught up into going next year because of, I said, as soon as I get on to the paperwork for whatever reason, I said, that's very disappointing. I was like, it's something. I said, just let me know what the reason why they, only get paperwork being, I think he said I was getting a report about it, but I just wanted to know. You haven't sent me away. I'm doing everything that I had to do my part in a timely fashion. I gave you something I told you, you turned it in 2 weeks later. What were you? I think that they get busy.
and that's what I put it in.
Yeah.
She just, it was over there. And I said, if we had no people in our process, we want to do people.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar.
And so they stuff get down to the lady. She seems pretty organized, but she's pretty military. So she kind of stays on top of it.
Okay.
She definitely don't fly to you. But when she get back to you, she's up to
Thorough.
speed.
Okay.
So I wasn't gonna push, but like I said, I hate like a hard time, like to sit by nothing. And so I called him when they gave me 2 dates to start. And after it reached the 14th day, which was the second last day, I ended up with him. I said, hey, I need a new schedule because I need to go back to this way because I wasn't gonna let this thing just come and go. And I'm not here.
And now you're
So
right.
give me another schedule. And that's when we had come. The day I sent him that email, and I was like, schedule for that. Well, as soon as I hit the send button, it said the email on my phone, it was sent. So I'm thinking he's replying to my email.
And he just called it.
So I asked him if he
All
was
my plans are for him.
So
He planned.
so he said, no, so I said, look, I just sent you email. So he said, oh, I see it now. I said, I'm thinking you replied to my email, but I didn't do date.
Sorry, he had to do that for me too. He had to update my date.
Because I decided I'm gonna go with your organization in other places. But it was 30 people in that class, so it was one.
I like small.
Yeah, and I said, no, he said this class is 37, 8. I mean, that's what I wanted to get a concentration,
Yeah.
a focus, and not have an individual that to do a lot.
South Career Center. And when I went there, I went just based on someone told me they can go over there and they help me with job, find jobs. Yeah. Did I say you can't go to the
No, no. When, I've learned how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So what I look at, your conditions.
Right.
You have to, you have to have, you couldn't have like taken and not complete.
Mhm.
Come up with work, and you have to have that confidence. Yeah, it's successful. So I think the criteria are definitely. Then the other thing is that if you've got it, you have failed. Now, it wasn't the failed industry like you, but this is certainly true marketplace because now people want to teach now.
You were able to go back up.
Right. So I went back and I put up, she told me to make a letter, and I wrote the letter, I put it 3 years.
Beautiful. Just beautiful. Yeah, yeah.
She said, well, you look really strong.
I know I did. Yeah.
So I put this in together.
As I was trying to.
And so, and I said, well, no, I'm prepared on my vision board, they appeal.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had it on.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't know that because you haven't read all of the kind of read qualifiers and qualified people to get it. And I thought it was getting stuff like that. I didn't know. That, you know, they
so
don't
there's a lot of stuff.
Wanted to go, we had to go behind the wall,
Okay, but
which
everything.
is not easy.
she was over.
We could have done it, we could do it.
Something broke.
It would take like
Broke
1
it.
day.
Over that side. We went to play with that. She thought it was cold. But she got on big.
Yeah, the thing is, your connection is like here. So this one,
But we
going
it wasn't
behind the
confrontational or
wall.
adversarial.
and you know what?
But I bet you she was saying.
If you move that side,
You might as well being born.
He's not letting go.
He's going.
He's gonna fight for it. Yeah.
see this wall, the wire is coming behind the wall
That's not.
and it came out from here.
Oh, that way.
Mhm.
Oh, so that's different than just one.
So we made that, so we can put the, you know, cable connection,
Right.
the VGA.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's the edge. Fell down. the-
So if you go that way, then we have to
One
do
of them-
this one
Around.
from around.
Yeah, no, I'm okay.
So we can, you know, actually. You know what? It is easy. And you know what? We can get that out. Pull it out. Put connect here the other wire and the rope. It is
Mhm.
rope and the cable. We pull that cable, which will take them both out.
Mhm.
Okay? Then we can keep the cable that we wanna use for the extension for this camera. And pull the rope with the same back. Know what I mean?
Yep.
So we can pull this one back with the rope, with the string, and leave the other one up. And then that goes from there, and we hang the camera on
We'll wait and see. I mean, if we got a flat screen in here.
I can do that, but the thing is, it's gonna take me like maybe 1 day.
Yeah.
Cause I'm not a professional, I'm a handyman,
Yeah. You did a fine job in Kearney. and-
I can do it, but I can do it.
Mhm.
But it's a little different.
Waiting on the boss again.
Yeah,
Go ahead, do it.
See, what they get versus just one time.
I'm not saying too many things anymore.
I know you mentioned it.
If you don't wanna do it,
I know you stopped
But
sending
if I
him the
keep
ads
telling
about.
again and
Yeah.
again,
A little bit.
he might get annoyed.
Whatever they need.
And you probably will kind of like me.
Tell one
We
time,
get this fixed. we get this
tell
fixed.
one time, after that,
We even found out.
if he wanted to get it done, he will come and down.
Mhm. Yeah. So that even with my wife and I talked about this, if I list 3 or 4 things on an email, the first one will get addressed. It seems like he hasn't read the rest of them sometimes. Maybe he has.
He said he's seen it.
Like I said,
But it's not.
don't worry. Just let him know that
Mhm.
you wanted to do it. We can use extension, we can put it over there with extension from here. But we only one cable in here.
Yeah, we have something right across. Right now, it's about as far as we know.
Or even, you
It's
know what?
unplugged right now.
We don't have to, you know, only when you have the class, move the camera there. After the class, put it back. And then,
And right now,
Cable is
in
set.
class today, I don't need to use the whiteboard.
right, I understand, yeah. But you know, if you need to use that one, extension, take it, move it there, we'll see that. After the class, move it back.
Yeah.
No more here. Yeah, I can buy you the extension. I can order
We can wait
now.
on that.
Lunchtime I can order, or I go shampoo down.
Ultra VNC is getting in the way.
I know, this is something, you know, we have to ask a boss what he wants to.
I found a setting
They-
that allows us to disable that, so you can't accept inbound.
What is that?
Under the VNC server things, there's a place where you can not accept.
No, but what is exactly?
Well, it's
That the-
it's a random, it's actually probably a rogue computer trying to log in our,
Okay.
and, it's not a good thing.
Yeah. I think we have a virus protection.
Yeah.
That's all we need. All right.
Tell me what happened. And I followed them all. And it worked out.
I think they've seen that, but it wasn't accessing these. So
Okay.
I'm not gonna sit home, nothing.
Yeah, I'm not sitting on it. I always like something. Even if I think of something, I can do it. My best friend said that was the goal is easy. I said, what are the goal is easy? She said, I don't know, I made it up because you always have to.
Have to go?
Yeah, she said, you have to do something. You can't sit still. It's like, I
Yeah.
have to be a ball. So,
Just looking outside and seeing the fog and the rain, realizing a week ago, we were frigid.
Wow.
it's ridiculous. The weather is ridiculous.
I know they were even talking about down south, the problems we're having there, because it was gonna be 80 degrees in some parts of Texas and Florida.
Mhm.
That's not normal for this time, even Atlanta.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
No, they 40s, 50s.
Hmm.
I lived in Florida and it cold.
I heard.
That cooler vortex last week, I think probably after it was hitting us, right at the same time, that was going a long way south. So I'm sure they probably had, that's what's funny to me about places like Dallas or America. They're not used to ice. They're not used to snow. They get an inch
I
of
think they had the
snow.
lights on 2 years back too.
Yeah.
They did,
They get an inch of snow down there. Oh, close the school.
And they look, and they had 2 inches of snow in Texas some years ago. They was calling everybody, look, please bring some flowers down here, and it would melt the next day.
Yeah, yeah. They don't have the equipment down there. They have that.
Right, they just not
Wait,
prepared.
2 inches?
2 inches, we just,
Yeah.
that's nothing, we blow that off.
Yeah.
You know, just
So they freaked out, closed the school, did they?
Yeah,
everything shut down.
it's funny. First people in Minnesota laughed at us when we were talking about 10 below.
Mhm.
Oh, it's not, isn't that a normal day?
Yeah, they still go to school.
Yeah, they go to school.
Yeah.
It was a fun thing on, somebody posted, and from Wisconsin, talking about Wisconsin and everybody else. At 50 degrees, oh, let's go plant. And other people are putting on their parkas and hoodies. And at 40 degrees, what are you doing? What they do in Wisconsin, what everyone else does. And, it gets down to like 10 degrees, so we're closing the school. Well, not in Wisconsin, we're going to school.
Not Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So Wisconsin kind of do everything.
Yeah, they actually, we got it bad, but they had it worse.
Yeah, and,
Colder, I
Minnesota
think they
did
had more
too.
snow. Yeah.
I think Minnesota had worse, right?
Oh, yeah. We're 25 below, Minnesota's probably 40 below.
That's
A little bit more
I would
used to it,
never
but even
go
for
there.
them, that's cold.
I got family in Minnesota, and I said, I don't know how you guys live there. I would not ever go to a time worse than Chicago.
So many things were canceled and stuff, and I was impressed with the fact that University of Illinois played University of Minnesota Wednesday night in Minnesota.
Really?
They played, when they played.
That's Minnesota for you.
That's Minnesota, and I don't know how the Illinois folks got up there, but they did somehow.
Make something happen.
Yeah. So execution, we got 3 processes in execution: acquire the resources, develop the team, and manage the team. I got the word project team in there. Probably should have just acquire resources in there, and that's my hangover probably from my past world. But is the process getting the team members, facilities, equipment, materials, supplies, everything we're going to need. Note to self.
What would
Slide
be
80.
other resources necessary? I would think team, facilities, equipment, materials, supplies.
That's a pretty good list. I don't know what else.
Other resources. I don't know.
I'm going to look at the quote again, because that was a quote out of Pinbot. So
Oh, yeah, I wrote the one out of Pinbot. They have and other resources necessary.
other resources necessary.
Yeah. I was thinking, what else would you have?
What else would you need? Maybe some support people, backup equipment. If we're NASA,
Maybe it's just to comply everything.
yeah, it's kind of like the catch-all.
Catch-all.
If we forget something else, okay, other resources, whatever's necessary. So on the project management team side, we're going to be negotiating to get the people we need. So a lot of times we are not the only project going on. So a lot of times we're going to be negotiating with other project managers and functional teams. If we have functional teams, can we get these people? If we don't get the people we need or the resources we need, that could impact a lot of things. Obviously, scheduling, cost being key things. Ultimately, customer satisfaction, if we're going to get this project done late from when the customer wanted it. So we may look at different alternatives too as we're looking to get the resources we need and cover those shortages. Or I think on the people side, that's what we might bring in contractors or third-party vendors to do work for us. So big plan, and had information in there on the resource plan and how we're going to bring in people. Procurement plan, it's talking about the contracts and things we might have, which could involve contractors. Cost baseline. Project documents, a schedule, resource calendars, requirements, stakeholder register. Environmental side of things. Human resource department a lot of times can help us with the people and cost rates and everything, people with what experience they have, and also policies and procedures for bringing in people from the outside or resources. OPA side, again, if we look at our past projects and stuff, a lot of times that can be helpful. We probably have specific things, policies and procedures we can use and bringing in the staff. Some things we need to consider about the staff. Who's available, when, what are their skills, abilities, do we have some good key leads? What's their previous experience? What have they done in the past and how have they worked with people? Personal interests. We'll see a little bit more about this coming up when we're talking about motivation. If we're not the ones signing their paycheck and everything, if they're getting a functional manager, somebody else is doing the final evaluations and giving their bonuses and stuff, how do we motivate those people? Which we'll see some different motivational theories coming up that will kind of talk to that some. Cost. Internal, external staff usually are expensive in different ways. What are their personal characteristics? Are they a team player? Are they an introvert that wants to just work in the corner and get work done?
you answer these questions, and then they categorize you, it's four categories, like dominant personality, conscientious, I, and there's two more personalities to look at you. I'm always dominant personality, I'm trying to get out of that, but I'm a dominant personality.
Dominant?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and I've taken it like 3 times, I'm always dominant.
Always dominant?
Always, that's just horrible. But they tell you know, what each means and the characteristics of people. But when you know things like that, and you look at projects, you just have some knowledge and stuff like that, you can kind of tell where people fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell the dominant personalities in the group, too many dominants don't get along, they just don't. You have the conscientious people, you have the introvert, you have the people who are just kind of for convenience, they just wanna do their work, they're researching and stuff like that. So when you do have a little bit of knowledge and things like that, it can help you when you're managing a team of people and understanding where conflicts could arise, because it's the first time.
Yeah, it can help you set up the teams too. Maybe we have one dominant with a couple worker bees.
Yes.
Couple, and let them just work
Let
together.
them dominate what they dominate.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Next slide is talking about decision making. Obviously, there's lots of different things we need to consider when we're putting a team together. And they mentioned, they use that term multi-criteria decision analysis in a lot of different ways in PMI, but here we're talking about getting people or resources. Who's available, what's the cost going to be, what experience do they have, what abilities or skills do they have, do they have some knowledge of relevant to our customers that we're working with, what's their attitude. And then obviously international factors come into play quite a bit, time zones and everything. Just to figure our India team must have worked second shift most of the time. And it was weird because they were either 13 and a half or 12 and a half hours different from us. They didn't go on daylight savings time. I don't know why, it was a half hour too. But, so that meant they were kind of out of whack with us.
So you had to move around more than
Sometimes, although it was funny too, because Arizona doesn't go on daylight savings time.
Really?
So we were either 1 hour or 2 hours different from them. So if we had what had been an 8 a.m. meeting, all of a sudden it was too early for them, or they had to take the call from home. We didn't always change the schedule around for that. Tools and techniques, personal and team skills, be working with the functional managers, other project teams, perhaps external organizations and suppliers if we're pulling in people from the outside or equipment. Teams have the ability to influence each other, which I think is an interesting thing when you're talking about teams working together. And we're going to have to negotiate, obviously, if we've got 4 or 5 projects or 10 projects going on at the same time. Ideal thing, some companies do this more than others, pre-assigned staff. We know what we're going to get. Oh, that's great. One of my students was a project manager for Allstate. He knew up front people he was going to have. So when we talked about this being an execution thing, but no, I knew that way up at the beginning of the project, what people I was going to pull in, what people I was going to do. Probably true in a lot of cases.
Yeah, so we knew the main project. Quality resources, they kind of jumped around when they were hot, so we didn't know who that quality person, but
Yeah.
we knew who would be executing the work.
Virtual teams, of course, we don't have as much face-to-face time unless we're using some of these new tools.
Do they use a lot of the virtual softwares for what do you call it, simulations or do they use that enough?
I think my experience with perhaps before using FaceTime or Google Hangouts or some of these tools we have now, we would have meetings a lot of times with our team around the world, but we'd be mostly using like GoToMeeting or WebEx, something like that. So you hear voices and see slides or see pictures and schedules and stuff. So we did more of that kind of thing. So I mean, we would work as a team a lot of times, even when we were, 3 or 4 different countries. But we did it more like that. So I say now, there's more technology to make it even easier to see people.
But people shut off that,
Set their image up, so you can't see them playing games or.
yeah, whatever, so
Yeah.
like, that's how ours was, we do the go-to meetings and stuff like that, you set it up, we had, a lot of it is, we did meetings and stuff to add on to your Outlook calendars and stuff, so you can kind of schedule everybody, if you're schedule a meeting.
Yeah.
And, everyone's little picture pop up when you're talking, because no one wants their camera on, so, that's the same thing, but sometimes people don't want to be looked at live, especially when they're at home. Sometimes you have people who are in the airports who travel a lot, do meetings in the airports, and stuff like that, and they have to be on, so.
Yeah.
So I guess what I was getting at, and I guess you answered the question, is this a part, is this always going to be a part of, to some extent, well, maybe not every day, but definitely part of the project going through, particularly if you collaborate and coordinate with people who are in other distant places, wherever they may be.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty common
I
now.
think it's pretty common. I mean, we have meetings with people in Dallas and Phoenix, so that's not so bad. But then we can bring in the Poland team sometimes to do India teams.
Well, local, if you got people in different offices, you can have people, they don't have to be out of state all the time, they can be in the same state or city with different office locations, you know what I mean?
Well, that's a good point. When I started at Motorola, we had 5 main buildings plus a couple, frontage road, one-story buildings we used. There were lots and lots of people, and my original team was in 3 or 4 of the buildings. We were, even though we were one team, we were like in these different locations. My boss was actually 20 feet from me, but his,
For you.
one of my other partners was next room down. A couple people were on the 3rd floor, some were building across the street. So when we had a team meeting, we had log into something to talk to each other. They eventually brought us together. At that time, when I started, it's like, so why don't we schedule? I think they had kind of the business idea that you cross-pollinate a little bit more if you with a developer and a system engineer talking about things. Some good things for that. I think it was more dysfunctional in a way that it's scattered so much. Halo effect, something that they mentioned as far as getting the people we want. And it's kind of the idea, general idea that some people may be really good at one thing, but not necessarily good at the others. So like this person's a great software developer, let's promote him to a project manager. So you understand that sometimes that means that's not going to always work. Maybe they're capable of becoming a good project manager, but probably need some more training, how to put schedules and costs together, a lot of things. And I tie in the Peter principle with this some too. The Peter principle was the idea that Peter Drucker put together. The idea that people get promoted one level beyond their competency. And my boss's boss at Motorola was like that. He was over 50 some people. He had no clue as to what all we were doing. And eventually when our group was dissolved and merged with other groups, he went off to Libertyville to be an individual contributor. And then eventually was let go. I blame him for our disillusion because when we went through one of the reorganizations, he had to explain what our teams were doing. And he didn't, and he couldn't. So that was too bad.
That's a follow me every time. Like, how do you have people who manage these huge groups of people? Well, that's not a huge group. And they don't know what's going on. It happens like all the time.
Well, that's why I brought up the question about the training, because you often have people in roles, and you can't really say anything about them. They're not holding up to you. That's really one of mine. You got some very efficient people that's doing some really key pieces, and then when it gets up to where this person is, it's almost like you can't screw it in because there are no threats.
Yeah. How do you thread it into a blank pipe?
So,
yeah.
So a lot of people, it's like,
but sometimes, and that's that idea, you get promoted one level beyond what you could handle. Promotion's usually a good thing. Okay, you make more money, you have more responsibilities and stuff, but you get promoted into a role that you have no clue what to do.
Or no interest either sometimes,
Yeah.
if you're interested in it, you'll probably be a little more prone to kind of want to learn.
Want to learn, maybe talk to some peers or maybe the previous person that held that position. Hey, can you help me
Figure
get settled in?
thing out or
Yeah. Sadly, doesn't always happen.
Especially when I've seen, technical, like engineers get promoted. I told you at the last job, I was the head of kind of like a layer of people, but project managers, like every year, probably 7 or 8 people left. I should have known something. But anyway, they left. And so, of course, you got project managers leaving, and then you had team members leaving. Of course, they're promoting people to do those positions. And they took some project managers, and then they took some engineers who just, they did to make a project manager, and they just didn't know how to do it. It wasn't something that they could probably learn, but a couple of them, I mean, one.
And it was the same technology. You got a guy that could talk to you and disassemble a laptop in smallest pieces. And, but when it came to integrating with people, that's when you know he was crazy.
That's when he was here.
Yeah.
He was exposed. Yeah.
And one of my roles in my last work at Motorola really kind of tied in with, we had an engineer or software developer promoted to project manager over his technical group. I would work with him a lot of times to help him understand how to put together a schedule, how to assign your people, how to put them on time tracking activities, all that kind of stuff, which as a software engineer, they didn't even, they might have been the lead software engineer, really good at what they did.
But you put this administrative piece in there, and it's kind of like,
Yeah.
why don't you just do it for me?
Yeah, you could just pop them in there and say, go for it.
Well, why do I have to do this? I don't have time for this. I have to do this.
You mean I gotta update my schedule every week? Oh, yeah.
It's too much, I've seen a lot of different things. I've seen a couple who actually turned out to be really good project managers too, but they were interested in it.
Yeah.
They became interested in the other side of it and wanted to know how to do it, so.
I guess I was fortunate that way too. Most of the people that I had to train and bring up to speed were good.
Yeah, they wanted to know about it.
They were, they didn't want to say, nah, I'm not interested in putting my schedule together.
Yeah.
Okay, you're gonna be blasted in the next status meeting if your schedule's not in order.
Yeah, no, I've had people like, and why do I have to do this?
Yeah.
What? This is part of what you do,
Yeah, so outputs from this section will be our physical resources that we're gonna need assigned for the different activities, the team assignments. Probably have a directory or org chart showing the people, like the example we saw earlier with that resource breakdown structure. Resource calendars. We talked about calendars a couple different ways. I think there's project calendars that they're talking about, and then resource calendars. Resource could be more of the specific thing for the people. Oh, I got a vacation next week, or whatever it might be. But also more on the company wide, we have a shutdown. Harvester, we always shut down for 2 weeks a month. So that was important because it meant that you could burn 2 weeks of everyone's vacation in one fell swoop. It also allowed mechanics and stuff to fix, upgrade, clean up the machines, rework on, maybe replace machines. So it had good benefit a couple ways. And also in a factory, typically August was pretty hot and it wasn't a good time to be sweating to death in the factory. Might have some change requests at this point. Maybe we don't have the people in-house or the equipment. I need to get some outside help there. And updates to our resource management plan, perhaps to our cost baseline. More updates, lessons learned, schedule, resource breakdown structure, requirements, risk and stakeholder registers. At this point too, we might have some updates going into our enterprise and OPA things. Early on when we're doing all our planning, we always had those as inputs. We'll see it from execution later in controlling, a lot of times we'll have those as outputs. If we're updating people's skills, things like that. Or new lessons learned, stuff going into our organizational processes. 9.4 then is about developing the team. I think this ties into your question. We may need to identify a lot of times if there's some skills lacking and we need to help get some training for the people, whether we train them or have others train them. We want to build up a team together, try to inspire the team to high levels of performance. So we want to improve the competencies, team interaction, overall environment to enhance the project performance. We may need to do some things to improve the skills of the people. I think they're thinking, well, it could be both the interpersonal and the technical skills, I suppose. If we got that guy that can't talk to anybody, we may need to help him talk to people in a way that we can understand what he's saying. He's just a technical jerk or something.
Great to talk to people.
Great to talk to. Yeah.
Kind of shy in front of the group.
Oh, yeah. We'll see this later when we're talking about rewards and recognition. I mean, if it's introvert, you might not want to put them in front of 100 people and say, here's your reward. Maybe just going to their desk and giving them that reward is all they would like. So there's some things like that we have to do with.
So if you have an individual that says, one person says, look, I don't want to do this. Wouldn't it be feasible to say like, okay, you know what? He's probably not going to be the best person, but only use him if he doesn't want to.
And you don't have anybody.
Or maybe you go back, if he's working for a different boss, maybe go back to his boss and say, this person doesn't want to do the work. Give me somebody that will. So he's swapping off.
I'm saying where you didn't have anybody else, where everybody else on the team, kind of not at higher level, but he has the most experience. You know what I mean? So to go and get someone who didn't have that level of experience would make sense to make them a project manager. So I'm saying.
Okay, so if, based on what you're saying, this might be the best person technically. I mean, you may know the network infrastructure, blind, backwards and blind, better than anybody. But on the administrative side, he's telling you, I don't want to do this. You know,
That happens.
Yeah, if you want to get, if possible, get somebody else. Or find out why he or she doesn't want to do it. Maybe we can help turn that around too. Especially if that's the only person we've got for that position.
I had a guy in Kansas, he was like, look, they made me a project manager. This is not what I wanted to do. And he was very affirmative. He was something else, to be honest with you. And but you could respect that he was honest about it, but then there was another part to it to where, well, it has to be done. And that's when the group was small at the time. When I started in Kansas, it was 16 of us. By the time I left, it was like 75 in different locations. So it grew pretty quickly. Not working, it grew pretty quickly, but this was initially, he was made a project manager because we were growing and he was the most experienced person in the group, him and another person. So of course, he's looking at, well, I just went from working on the projects and being good technically, and now I have all of these different responsibilities that I don't know how to do, and then I understand why I have to do them. You know, so I think it was a part to where he was taken out of his comfort zone and he kind of responded to it negatively, you know. And then I think the biggest part is that he didn't understand why he had to do everything. I don't think he understood how they tied in, you know. And he left the company. He left the company about maybe, I think it was like within that year, he left. He said, I just want to work on the project.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, and then just got more people in. Of course, they started hiring project managers specifically, but he had a hard time. He told me to get out of the office. Yeah, no, that's the first time I've experienced that. So I have to get updated some statuses and stuff. And say, hey, I forgot, I can't remember his name, but he might be get out of my office. And I'm like, all right, yes, I'm get on out of here, you know, because you don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
You know, but I had to be consistent because I had to get the information. I said, well, since I got to the point, well, I will be back next week. Unfortunately, that I didn't have the update. Never had them. Never had them. And so then I had to escalate to the boss. You know, so it's one of those things that kind of you try to manage it on your own as much as you can.
Mhm.
But then the boss is asking me, why haven't you updated stuff about these side projects? Why aren't you know about it? It's not really my fault, it's because I'm not getting the information. So when it comes down to you, kind of, hey, I've been
Pass it
trying.
off.
Yeah, I've been trying, and, it's just not cooperating. So I've had, that was, I take my bad experiences and think that they were good ones later down the line, because at the time, it's like, I don't wanna deal with this.
Mhm.
But you find later that it's a learning experience, it's an opportunity to learn how
Yeah.
some people just resist things and they don't wanna do it.
I was impressed, particularly with one of my program managers, had our largest ever program, I think, before we started tapering down. We had three major, what we call major capabilities, so sub-programs, and then another 40 or 50 projects. Pretty big thing. And that's when we were actually costing things, so we actually see the cost of this great big program. And we'd have our weekly status meetings and stuff, and people grumped, had a hard time. He stayed very level-headed with it. It's always very professional with the people. He said, okay, well, if this is a problem, we'll have to escalate it. Escalation is one of those key things to use. And sometimes that would bring the person back in line, or if not, then maybe they weren't going to be on the team anymore. But it impressed me that he was able to handle these quirky people sometimes.
And different personalities.
Yeah. Here's some objectives. We want to improve skill sets of people, make them more effective. A lot about team building. We want to develop a team where there's trust and agreement, where people can get along together. A lot of times resolve conflicts among the team members. That's part of what was in that team charter too. How do you work together and resolve the problems you got with each other? Being collaborative, problem solving, and coming up with good decisions. Ideally, we want to try to get that dynamic, cohesive group. So we're all focused, working together, going the same way. Here's a little bit, this isn't specifically about project management, but about groups in general, from Bruce Tuckman, talking about how groups come together. And he saw 5 stages in there called forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. We'll have a little bit about each one of these coming up. So forming, groups first coming together. Highly dependent on the leader giving some direction and guidance here. We don't even know what we're doing yet, so we're going to kind of test things out. We don't know who's doing what. Processes probably aren't real clear at this point. And team members are going to test us, test the system, see what they can get away with. Storming, well, now we're duking it out more. Decisions still don't come very easily, and so groups, people are looking to get their position, maybe cliques forming, some factions, doing some power struggle kind of things. Still not real clear why we're here coming together. And so what we're really trying to do is focus more on going the same direction a lot of times. And compromise is often the way to get anything done here. Norming, I'll say, okay, now we're getting it. We got an idea what we're going to be doing. Roles and responsibilities are becoming clear. Big decisions can be made by the group. Some smaller ones can be delegated. More of a commitment to get the work done. And we can work together on discussing, how we want to do some of the stuff and what kind of styles of work we want to do. As a leader, then at this point, we've got a little bit more respect, and we can be a little bit more, guiding, facilitating the group, enabling the group to keep going.
They trust your decisions and understand what you can do.
Yeah. Performing, now we're cruising. The team really understands why we're together, what we're doing, have the shared vision. Ideally, overachieving, really focused on what we want to get done. Disagreements, problems can be resolved a lot of times within the team. So that in this kind of role, we would become more like delegators and overseers. Make sure the team keeps cruising, keeps moving along. So here's a cartoon version of that, like storming with the sword and the hammer.
Swashbuckling.
Swashbuckling.
It's what did in college, it's 5 pages, talking about law.
Yeah. Group project.
this, don't tell me what to do. It's like, it really gets bad.
Yeah.
But then, after you get there, you created your team and you're going from class to class, it's like you all have it sorted out. Everybody kind of falls into place and know what they're to do, know the role and everything like that. But then you always get a new person in class and you on somebody's team. That was horrible. And it's like
Start over again.
Yeah, because the cohorts usually follow, but you got to think different people are popping in and out of different levels of whatever they have in school. So maybe they just need this class to finish.
Yeah.
So you might have a couple people in the cohort. You don't want them.
We're together now. We're focused.
Yeah, and so the instructor would be like, look, I'm gonna have to assign this person. It's like, because it's like we figured this thing out. We got a good working team. Get a new person on the team. I mean, in the worst situation I had was this guy who was a military guy. He wasn't old or anything. He was probably in his 30s. I think he has some, you can tell he has some issues. So he had some type of issue. For some reason, I got along with him pretty well. He's on my team. Tell him things that he needs to do. He talked on the phone, had no problems with him. One day I missed class, and they say that he just snapped in class. Like, he snapped in people's faces, and I was just so surprised when I heard about it. But he didn't get along well with one of the guys on the team. I think that they had like this man type, I don't know, I think it was macho lady when I think about it. But he snapped in class, and I think people in class were afraid. They said he just kind of was so out of sorts.
Wow.
Yeah, to where they removed him from the school. It was that bad.
Wow.
But it was just so funny, just looking at that, it was Storm, and he was trying to fit into the group. But I made him feel comfortable with the group, and I was able to talk to him about dealing with other people in the group, and I know which one person on the group is ridiculous, he didn't do it with everybody. But, we learned how to deal with them, we've learned, and just looking at that, the way that things work out, that's the way it has worked out, like places I've worked as project environments, agencies, people really go through that phase of getting to know each other and getting in the groove, and to where it can be really tough, and then everything kind of, they start performing.
Yeah.
It's tough, though.
Or they're out. Like,
Yeah.
that fellow ended up being out.
Yeah.
Blew up.
That's the first time I've ever seen that, someone get out, but
When I was a part-timer at UPS, we had this one part-time supervisor that oversaw one of the slides, where we sorted packages from the different towns. And he had in a Vietnam veteran, he wasn't Vietnam veteran, and every once in a while he would snap and talk like they were actually in battle.
Okay.
And
PTSD, did he
yeah,
have that? Okay.
yeah. And people kind of scared because he'd be up there shouting at them and saying, "Look out for those rockets coming in," and stuff. What? We're inside a building here.
You okay?
Yeah.
But you have to work with people like that. You have to be, they have to be able to fit into the thing, but once you get to know them and get comfortable, you can perform, but it takes a while to get there.
Yeah, and like you say, with that person you were talking about, unfortunately, they don't always fit in.
Yeah.
So then they're out.
No, it isn't. I was so surprised, because I talked to him on the phone, and we talked about the work that needed to be done, and I don't know, I wasn't there that day, but
Yeah.
he said he just, I was like, I don't know what could have happened. I said, we talked, and he was totally fine with the assignments, what we needed to do, and
Wow. Talking about inputs in here, so from the resource management plan, we've got some guidance there on how we're going to do training, discipline, rewards. How the team charter is going to be helpful. Documents, lessons learned, register, schedule, team assignments, resource calendars, team charter. Oh, there's team charter. Enterprise and organizational things may feed into this. Tools and techniques about developing a team. Great if we can co-locate. We can. Virtual teams a lot of times work pretty well nowadays. What kind of communications things are we using? Do we have shared portal or data warehouse where we get a lot of information? My world we had something like that. Where a lot of stuff out there people could pull up as they wanted to. Video conferencing, audio conferences, email and chat, I think becoming more normal now. They don't mention specifically some of the different things we got now, but they could possibly be in there too. Forgetting one, you mentioned it earlier.
What were we on?
Well, the things like
Hangouts.
Hangouts are the things your daughter does with,
Oh,
maybe
Instagram.
Facebook,
Yeah,
Instagram,
yeah.
different things like that. Those could probably be listed in here too. Interpersonal skills, how do we deal with conflict, influencing, motivating our team, negotiating with different team members to get in sync, doing things to build up the team. Rewards and recognition, kind of important. Training where needed. And we'll be assessing the people both on the individual level but also on the team level. Probably, I think we could tend to focus more on the team level, but individuals are going to need some specific help sometimes too. And probably have some meetings as we're doing this. Here's a little bit about building the team to be effective, having the team members being interdependent, having a reason to working together, committed to working together, team being accountable as a whole for the work that we're doing. And when there is conflict, that's okay. PMI thinks that some level of conflict and competition is a good thing. A lot of times that'll put better ideas. And not just, we're going to do it one way, oh, wait a minute, what about this way? So, and being able to work together to go through team issues and problems.
I like competition. I think it keeps you on your A game.
Get your A game up?
Yeah, it keeps you on your A game, like in a competitive environment, because it's like sometimes you can be, I think that like you are the only person who's doing something or something. I don't know. I'm just trying to get an example. You don't really have nothing to measure yourself against. You know, but then when you have competition, and this maybe maybe it's not position competition, but you have someone else or other people who's kind of doing things, you're always trying to generate ideas because people always have different ideas about doing things, best practices. So I think competition keeps you, it doesn't allow you to get comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think the way they're talking about here too is, you know, the more we brainstorm different ways of doing the same thing, may come up with a better way. You know, if we decide just to go with option one, might discover that, oh, you know, Bill has a better idea, but we should do it this way. Well, actually, that doesn't make sense. Let's look at doing it that way. A little bit about team building. This is true a lot of times in organizations. We don't have top management support. That would be right off the bat a problem. Want to get the commitment from the team members, use the appropriate rewards and recognition. Try to build up a team identity. I know we can do a lot of this, but early on at Motorola, maybe have actually people name their team. We're the progressives, we're the fighters, or whatever it might be. Somebody that kind of identified what they're doing and giving that mascot or team name. Managing conflicts within the team, developing trust, open communications, of course, is great. And I think we need to realize a lot of times too, even though we have formal communications and stuff going on, there can be a lot of times these informal things that can help or destroy the team. We've got good informal communications going on, that's a good thing. And as a leader, you know, a lot of times our leadership is going to be one of the most important things. Here's some problems. Reasons teams don't come together very well. The left side, I think part of it is the people side and part of it's what we're actually producing. So we've got frustration, unhealthy conflict, meetings become less productive, lower morale, motivation level drops. It doesn't say it here, but we might have more churn in the people. I'm out of here. I don't want to work in this team. And ultimately, that could be hurting our deliverables. They get out late, got more problems and defects in them. Some problems on the other side, other barriers. We got conflicting goals, bad communication, environmental changes. I know Motorola, that was kind of a weird thing because we reorganized about every year and a half. And that kind of thing changed how we were doing business a lot of times. Internally, at least. Maybe not what we maybe not what our customers saw. Um, That's why after my boss's lost out on having us stay together as a unified team, uh, we came under the more like control of the Schomburg group, which did things differently. They weren't interested in cost. They weren't interested in schedules as much as we were. And so we stopped doing costing. Schedules changed, and the reporting that had been built over 3 or 4 years, which was really pretty good, was kind of scrapped. And they took, after they dispersed us, they had a small group of, I don't want to call them leftovers, but they were the least productive and team members. They brought them together to make a new reporting team. It was almost 2 years before they came up with any good report, and they weren't that good. They weren't as good as the ones we had prior to this. So I was like, that's not good.
2 years, that's a long time.
Yeah, yeah. We kind of,
They probably didn't know where to start or something.
well, they weren't the most experienced people. Well, there was one developer which was pretty experienced, but without the guidance of good people to say, here's what the end users are looking for, here's what we need in reports. It
Kind of have to just start over and
Yeah.
figure it out.
They started over when they shouldn't have. They should have just built on what was already developed. That obviously caused some problems with the organizational agendas. Lack of trust or confidence in the project. Yeah, if we don't have the people supporting us, believing in us, at least willing to work with us, obviously that could be a problem too. There's a bunch of team building activities. I won't go through all of these, but I think it's funny they mentioned donut days in there. Actually, some of my students have done that. They've actually brought in snacks from the class. Well, that's nice. Let's see, so I mentioned offsite meetings in there. I know we used to have offsite meetings, yeah, where when I came on board with Motorola, it's usually a half-day meeting. They call them town halls. There's the status of what's going on in our group. Here's what we've done. Here's what we're looking to do next. Kind of at the high level. But it was nice because it would often be at like the Hyatt, well, one of the hotels like by Arlington Heights racetrack. And you know, we have a nice spread for breakfast, continental breakfast, fruit and rolls and things. I guess before my time, those used to be a one-day meeting. You know, so they'd have lunch and maybe dinner too. Pretty cool.
They did, we used to have team building and bowling alley.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had drinks and food and stuff, but what happened is that they chose teams, and we have people even remotely have to fly in to make sure that they come.
Mhm.
So the teams were pre-chosen. Whatever team that you were on your bowling team, you linked up with one other person, but then it was comprised of the team that was pre-chosen. You know, you couldn't pick your team. And the whole point is to just not talk to the people you're talk to all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I found, that was my first time going to that kind of team building event. And I was one of the people who kind of had some interaction with everybody at some point, but didn't work with them all the time. But it really, I saw that after that, I saw how things, the morale a little bit changed with the team, because people who never talked to one another or never were probably comfortable with one another on the same team was bowling. We did a lot of little goofy stuff, bowling, like go bowl backwards and blind.
Oh.
Just all this little silly stuff that we were doing. And but you know, you saw people who usually weren't talking, they were kind of having more of a relationship. So I kind of seen how it would benefit. I didn't know before, but it really did benefit the team to make it to where people it was easier for them to approach one another, talk to one another and stuff like that. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Did a couple things like that where it'd be like a picnic. This off Route 53 in Palatine is a park, and they rented the whole park out, I guess, for one day. There were paddle boats, there were places where you play softball games. It was for a whole family thing, and so we had barbecue and everything, lots of food. That was really, really nice. And yeah, you did get those people you might have just talked to on the phone or just seen across the hall. You actually get to hang out with them a little bit more.
Especially when you involve alcohol, you'd be surprised how. No, I'm serious. You know, alcohol tends to kind of loosen people up. Some people too loose, but you know, people can tend to talk more if they have a drink, or you kind of get to know them outside of work
Mhm.
than it's just in the office. So it was pretty good. I actually liked it a lot.
So I'm looking at this, it popped up, in my area, you just work in my world,
Mhm.
I was actually doing stuff. And I got annoyed that every time I turn around, I was in a meeting,
Oh,
No.
you know. Now we having meetings about meetings.
yeah,
So-
that's a problem.
Yeah,
To everybody, they're like, oh.
Yeah,
you
you know,
know,
we used to talk, we have people come once in a while, have so many
Oh.
meetings, like you can't even work them.
right,
That
Yeah.
kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
This, I don't think he's talking about that extreme.
okay, all right.
Yeah, let's not have another meeting, just have another meeting.
Oh.
But what kind of ways can we do things to really gel, come together more? Yeah. We,
But it works. It actually, this stuff actually works.
you know, like when we had, initially when I started Motorola, we had these kickoff meetings, which sometimes go 2 or 3 days. We have a facilitator and between post-it notes, doing brainstorming all over the walls.
Mhm.
The cool thing about that, and I think this was in one of those earlier quizzes, was that we had FaceTime. We actually saw people that were using this on the phone with,
Mhm.
and it was a little different. That's Mary, or that's Bill.
Mhm.
And actually seeing them,
Mhm.
and maybe having a chance to talk to them a little bit too, rather than just blah, blah, blah on the phone, making something that
Yeah.
can't even picture.
Or see a little picture on, whatever their.
Oh,
work
yeah,
is.
New York chart or something.
Yeah, it's like, well, I saw your picture, but you don't look anything like that picture.
Yeah, first impressions sometimes are
Yeah.
totally off. So the output of this section would be maybe some performance assessments on the whole team, looking at what we've done well, within budget, good quality, maybe some of those improved skills that we brought in for training the people that needed some more help. Hopefully some improved competencies if we've given them some training. Ideally, reduced turnover. I saw a quote a while back from Richard Branson. I thought it was interesting. You want to train your people to be good enough so that they can lead the company. You want to treat your people well enough that they want to stay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, you know, improving them, giving them more competencies and skills, have an environment where they don't want to move on to someplace else. Probably. He's done a lot of things. Virgin Mobile, Virgin Air. New thing that I just read about.
Oh, I know, I think just another book I bought. I've got so many books, but I don't want to read them. I tend to read them, but
Yeah.
I forget the name of the book. I'll think of it, but this book addressed kind of like what you it's hard. And this is an old book, and it was so interesting that concepts formed a lot of years ago,
Mhm.
and they just were never perfect. Now, a lot of people know about the book, they know about these concepts, but the people who live in them, they live their own island, they live by themselves. But some of them are highly functional and successful because they apply these objectives and principles in ways in their own life. You can't control the world, external world around you, but it's sort of like, I know I told my son once that if you have a clean house, you gotta make somebody look out of place to walk in the door and drop paper on the floor. It's all you're gonna see,
Yeah.
because if it's a whole bunch of paper on the floor and they drop another one down there, it's just another piece of paper.
Mhm.
If it's a clean room, and I'm just using that as a concept specifically to it, has something about how they do things, something how they manage stuff, their personality, like everybody knows to receive and deal with it in a certain way.
Mhm.
And this relates to how they're successful doing stuff they do.
So they apply it to the personal life.
They
So they live it.
Right, they live
They
it.
walk it like it's
Right.
out.
They live it. Yeah. And Branson was kind of like, he's a virgin guy, right?
Virgin Air, Virgin Mobile,
Yeah.
and also he's doing some new things now. He's actually helping develop some bullet trains. Let's go from, it was like Washington to Miami, something in California too. They're running into some problems with it. He needs a few $1 billion to do it, so he's working on getting investors.
So you buy another island?
Yeah.
Like they're working on it here with our favorite person, what's his name? I forgot his name. Tesla man.
Month, month.
Month. Yeah, you know, they're working on, I guess this is really train, but underground here in
Oh, yeah.
Chicago. Often they went to check it out, the concept behind it, get it where, minutes or something like that. But it's underground, something he's
Yeah.
trying to create. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I heard
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And they want Chicago to be one of the places where they introduce it.
What is
Something else.
Like a super underground train going
Yeah.
to like St. Louis.
Right, or something like that.
Like Milwaukee or something.
Yeah, or even I think closer distances, like it's taking you from downtown to stop at O'Hare or something.
Mhm.
But it's like it'll get you to O'Hare in like 5 minutes,
Wow.
you know. I said, really?
We get to go pretty deep, do some of this stuff.
Yeah, because you got the subway already
Yeah.
down there, you know.
And a lot of infrastructure. That's what the
Yeah.
city ran into when somebody was doing some construction
Mhm.
and they busted into the Chicago River, flooded a bunch of the
Yeah.
basements of the building.
Yeah.
So,
With the pylons.
Yeah.
yeah, so, great ideas and stuff, I mean, but, you know, to make it happen, so.
Yeah. I've been to London a few times and there's something sitting
That
there.
channel?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've been in the tunnel once. but-
Really? Oh, no, I would never go down
That's the train that goes from like London to Paris or London to
there.
France.
Under the English Channel.
Under the English Channel. But years and years to
Under.
build that.
Under
Under.
the English Channel.
So,
People take it all the time, huh?
yeah,
And
they do.
I told my daughter when she was in London, I said, look, I know you adventurous, like,
Yeah.
she'll do stuff.
Yeah.
Please don't do that. I just can't imagine the work with it.
Yeah. It's actually pretty safe, but,
Really?
yeah,
No.
He said no.
I've only done it once. But anyway, I was gonna say,
Oh, you
just
did it, okay, how was
the
it?
subway system though in London is amazing. Actually got sometimes 3 or 4 levels of trains.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to go down an escalator to go to the next level to go the other direction. So
Mhm.
they've already built underground, like 3 stories down
Mhm.
or more. And, yeah, they call it the tube. Their subway system, and it's really quite good.
Okay, so how was that channel?
The channel thing,
Yeah.
well, that wouldn't be the subway system, but
Yeah.
they've got trains that they go from like
Mhm.
England to Paris or England to France.
Mhm. You just wrote it, right?
Yeah,
And how was it? That's what I was asking.
it's good. And when you're underneath, it goes a little bit slower, but when you get it in the countryside, like in Paris, then it zooms,
Okay.
going 150 miles an hour or something like that. You know how when we're in a train now,
That
you can
sounds
see,
scary.
things going by.
Mhm.
There, you couldn't even see the telephone poles going by. You could see a town, another town.
How fast was
I think it was, I'm forgetting now, but I think it was like 150,
it?
something like that.
That's
It
pretty
was
fast.
like 3 hours from Paris to, from London to Paris.
And 150 miles
And
an
the
hour.
weird thing about the tunnel though was that refugees were trying to get on trains and stuff. Yeah, but France in, so
Mhm.
that was a problem. They had fences and stuff there.
Yeah.
People were still trying to get on a train or something. People sometimes died. They were between train cars and traveling.
I mean, but
They fell off or something.
there was a time in London, for example, they don't even like you walk in the cities, that garbage, and they don't have none of that because of the terrorists. You know,
Same with travel abroad.
so I'm just saying, I would be so concerned
Okay.
about going down there,
Something
somebody
like
walk
that,
in with a backpack on, and they already know, like, I'm going to explode myself.
Yeah.
Okay, I
You
got
know
you.
what I'm saying?
You have much bigger concern than
But,
just,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I got a big concern there too. I mean, what do you do?
Nothing but that. I mean, it's nothing you can do, right?
Somebody
Where can you
decides
go?
they wanna go down there and go down there.
I know there's a lot more, scanning and
Yeah,
safety things in place.
I mean, they got, guys got a vending booth down there, you know, selling whatever, you know, like, I know.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah.
I know England used to be a little more scary place when the IRA was going crazy,
Yeah.
blowing up stuff here and there. But even
It's
when,
scarier now.
Hmm?
United States is scary more.
Yeah, and we
All
talked
the
about some of these other
bombs
places and
and
stuff.
stuff,
Going,
all these
oh,
shootings and stuff.
let's go to the city and see how many people got killed yesterday. You know, we're probably more dangerous in some ways, like in Chicago, than we would be in London or in the jungle.
And then just the country itself, unfortunately, with all of just the mass shootings that happen,
Yeah.
killing, what, 4, 5, 20, 30 people and injuring many at a time.
Yeah.
That's a form of, to me, that's a form of terrorism.
Yeah. It
You
could
know,
be
it's just domestic, but it's just people who just roll and they're just killing people for nothing. It's, what's the difference? It's the same thing. It's just not, you're not using a bomb.
yeah, it's not ISIS or something.
No,
It's
but it's,
a guy that went off his rocker or something. It's like
yeah.
shooting.
And you don't know when or where it's gonna break out. I mean, it's terrorism.
You know.
Yeah.
But
But
nobody wants
it's
to
just
die.
domestic. And it's people who come from here.
Sorry.
No, no problem.
Again, just this comes right back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's horrible, you know? Because it's like, like I know when I was growing up in high school and grammar school, no one ever came and shoot up the school or anything like that. So I think about that with my daughter in high school.
Mhm.
Read about it all the time, that, you know, being over the schools and students at the schools. Like, my daughter goes to Evergreen Park High School, just right in the Oak Line, earlier this summer, they compete with them all the time. They had 2 incidents there. I don't know if you saw it on the news. But when the student put something on Snapchat saying he's gonna shoot up the school, and the kill list the girl had was on the cheerleading team.
Oh, boy.
My daughter's a cheerleader. We compete. I was just over there at this
Oh,
school this
boy.
summer competing with Oakland High School.
Mhm.
You know, so it's kind of like you think about stuff like that and how it relates to you and your family, and it's happening.
Mhm.
It's really happening. You know,
Yeah.
I tell people if they look at me like, you know, I love it that way. I'm like, look, it's like terrorism is just something that happens. It's senseless. You don't know when it's going to happen.
Mhm.
It's their own personal reasons or beliefs kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's the same with shootings here. It's not being done by someone from other countries, but it's being done by people who are born and raised here.
I haven't heard the stats recently, but I know a lot of times shootings end up being domestic. They kill their mother or brother or aunt and uncle or something.
Yeah, it's just a lot of stuff going on that's going on. I think that we were looking at the development, just the employees, you know, the emotional fulfillment, the likes and dislikes. I mean, it's just never really done.
Yeah.
You know.
Sorry. Oh, no problem.
And then now, at the beginning of our meetings, we always have, we have the cover safety topic at the start of every meeting.
Mhm.
Safety topic could be anything. We can talk about, you know, when it's cold outside, how to protect yourself. So
Mhm.
if I start a meeting, we talked about safety. You can choose any topic, anything you want to talk about for our safety. Well, they started covering if there's an active shooter.
Oh, you do?
Reader, that became a safety topic, and it was just kind of like, wow. Became a safety topic. We got an active shooter.
Yeah.
Have to talk about it.
It's not just a matter of taking your battery in the house in the 25-degree below day.
No, safety topic,
Yeah.
you know, active shooter is now a topic. Talk about.
Yeah. So when we look at some of the motivational theories, I'll have some qualms about some of them. Because some of them kind of assume that we're getting better and better and better. Time out here. Why do we have more shootings? Why do we have more killings? Why is more worldwide so many wars and everything going on? We're not getting better and better. That was kind of the old humanistic idea that if we continue to improve,
It's worse and worse.
yeah. Well,
Behaviors.
there's that capability, I think, of everyone getting better. Not everyone is getting better. Let's see. Oh, out of the team development, we might have some new change requests, and updates to our plans, updates to our documents, lessons learned, new lessons learned, maybe some new team assignments for the people, something might be adjusted in the schedule, resource calendars, maybe an update for our charter. Now, here's where we're actually having outputs into enterprise environmental factors. People got some new trainings, new skills. Okay, we'll send that off maybe to HR or whoever's overseeing the assessment of the people in our team. And new things going into our OPAs. Maybe some updates to our requirements for training, personal assessments of people. 9.5 then is going to be managing the team. So it's process tracking the team performance, providing feedback, resolving issues, managing changes to optimize our performance. So the big plan, particularly the resource management plan, will feed into this. Our staff assignments, what we've learned, lessons wise so far in this project. Issues log, new team charter. Issue log, at first I thought was way different from what I thought about in my world. In my world, we had a simple Excel spreadsheet with risks and issues. Risks were those problems we thought might occur. Issues, it occurred, it happened. And then we have a lot of detail there about when it was discovered, who's going to own it, target date to close it out, things like that. And that's actually included in the way PMI thinks too, but the issue log could be even broader than that. The VP of Finance disagrees with the VP of Engineering. Okay, well, that's an issue. Sometimes it may be more minor that we just don't understand each other. But, that's not something that broadcasts to the world that these two people are duking it out. But as a project manager, it might be something to work on as far as giving you more information, working with them to help resolve the, maybe it's not a big conflict, maybe it's just a misunderstanding. So the issue log could have that kind of thing too. Our key developer and our test lead don't agree on their approach. Okay, good to recognize that and log it, and then decide how we're going to work on resolving that. Performance reports. Now we're in execution, so we've got plan and actual information, got results on how we're doing on scope, schedule, cost. Looking at how we're going to do those rewards and recognition. We may have some HR requirements tied into that too. Work performance assessment, looking at the team and looking at ways that we can perhaps improve the interactions. There may be some environmental factors that will fit into this, the organization culture and the way the organization works. And on the OPA side, probably have perks, bonus structures and things that we can help or work with. I started Motorola, we had lots and lots of perks. It was really pretty cool. We even got a nice fleece jacket when we did really good on one program. I lost that someplace on that. I don't know what happened to it.
They are usually nice.
We also had a lot of these little perks, like Motorola, used to be in the NFL, you see all the coaches with the NFL Motorola headsets on. Motorola is being across. We're not doing that anymore.
The bowls or something now, isn't it?
Could be, yeah. I don't see that many names now, so I watch the coaches.
These bowls or something.
Yeah, it could be those. But related to that, we had all these baseball caps with all the NFL teams on it. When my division was sold to Nokia Siemens, and we had all this perks and stuff that no longer made sense. So I actually got a big stack of Post-it notes that said Motorola WiMAX, which was something that was going to be one of the next big technologies that kind of died out. Wi-Fi is becoming the next big technology. So I'm still using them. It's been how many years since I've been there? A bunch. 7 years.
I have to buy it.
Just a couple left. Yeah, I've been buying for a long time.
Don't you hate that we have to buy them?
Yeah.
I should have took more.
Because I look at 3M,
Yeah.
or even getting the cheap ones like at a dollar store or something.
Dollar store ones aren't as good, but,
Yeah, has a sticky stuff on it. Yeah. I still got a couple baseball caps. I gave some of them away. I had one for like, was it Cincinnati? Don't have anyone that needs a Cincinnati baseball cap, so I think it's sitting in our closet or something.
I had those kind of perks too. They have like project teams, they have these huge projects, but you can pick projects, so they get the project team together. That's so many jackets. They were really good jackets. No, it's really good.
Yeah.
Jackets and pens and lunches. Go to work every day is, I would say out of the week, probably have to spend money on lunch maybe once a week. Every school, every day.
Wow.
Because the building, there was always a project team meeting, it was a project environment. Food that's left over, just sit in the cafeteria, so people come in.
Everyone can snack on it.
Yeah, so people just wait till about 1:30 to have lunch and go down, it's just everything now,
Nice.
so that works.
Yeah. That's one of the things that people like at Google like. Google basically you can have breakfast, lunch, and supper there. A lot of other things going on. Usually workout rooms and things that are pretty much lit there.
That saves a lot of income. Food is a big expense.
Yeah. A little bit about tools and techniques and managing the team. There's 5 techniques they talk about for dealing with conflict. And we'll see these show up in different ways. You may use them, all of these at different places or different times. Withdraw or avoid, smooth or accommodate, compromise or reconcile, force or direct, collaborate or problem solve. When we're doing decision making, we want to really focus on the problem and try to keep the personality side of it, the personal stuff out of it. Emotional intelligence, already talked about that a little bit, managing our emotions, but also the team's emotions where we can. Influencing, these are some of the good things to do. Active listening, persuade, negotiate, make sure we're clear on the key problems we're working at. Trying to come together ultimately with good agreements. And having leadership can help in this too. Way back in the starting section, I think we had that one slide that showed characteristics of leadership. They
Yeah,
kind
that
of
was
distinguish.
in integration.
Uh, yes, or in the introductory section. I'm not sure which, but very early on. That's kind of interesting because managing is more like status quo. Let's keep things going, keep the work going. Where leadership is more forward-looking, I think. What could we do differently? What could we do better?
Oh, yeah.
So one was doing the things right for managing and doing the right things for leadership. So more visionary looking forward.
So are you of the opinion, I'm asking you, that understanding, like a lot of these introductions, these ideas and stuff, if we don't have them already with, say, any previous management experience, is this something that would frame up in your mind if you understood this well enough so that you would at least be able to, utilize it? If you do you understand what I'm asking?
I think so. I didn't understand like these 5 different characteristics of managing conflict very good. I probably didn't do a very good job when I was at UPS and I had a part-time worker that I had to tell her she wasn't doing very well. And she blew up and got crazy. Didn't talk to me for a while. Yeah, I mean, all of us are still learning and progressing. So I think that, if I don't have all these skills now, sometimes I can learn it. Sometimes there are different personalities in the way we work. Like, he is dominant. I'm more of a laid back, easygoing kind of guy. So my role and the way I would handle things would be a lot different. There are times when I had to be more directive. I had to learn how to do that stuff. So, yeah, I think none of us come in perfect. So I think a lot of it's still learning. I think asking questions, talking to the team, especially if you've got a new team and just getting to know them. Getting to know the team is a big thing. I was surprised when Blackhawks fired their coach. I thought he was a pretty good coach when he got to Stanley Cup a bunch of times.
Twice a week, but
And the new guy, I don't know a thing about him, but I was impressed with the fact that he really spent a lot of time talking to the team one-on-one and stuff, and getting familiar with them. Helping him get familiar with them, but also them likewise they get familiar with them too. He's a young buck. I don't think he was a head coach anywhere else before. He's 30-something, I think. I was impressed that I thought he was doing the right things up front. Just really getting more integrated with the team and figuring out what they were doing. I mean, maybe a good coach, I know. Hawks are winning now, but they sure weren't winning for a long time. They've won like 5 games in a row, I think, or something. They're still at the bottom of the list.
I can be dominant, but I don't try to put that out front because I have a thing where I would hate to say go running the leading race and discover that I'm in the wrong lane. I'll try to be careful about being dominant too quickly because you look worse if you do already discussed that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I try to assess where I am,
Mhm.
what's going on, get a view of what's going on first, and it's just being careful to me, not,
That's good.
you know, so, and I know that I deal with people who, a lot of ways, people need to say it that way, but just become dominant in things, and in the end, it really looked like they just wanted to win more than,
That is doing what it is.
doing what was objectively beneficial for the whole project.
Mhm.
And then once you find out, and there are times I've seen people, even after they go that far, you still can't reel them in.
Yeah.
But okay, I just thought, because a lot of this is framing up in my mind like that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I'm starting to think, okay, if I'm following this, even though I know this it seems more like a chart for what's being covered in the book. So if this is going to be the guide for what is going to be on the test, then I need to know, I need to understand this well enough
Mhm.
and get it out of the book or the reader,
Yeah.
in order to understand it that way. Because my mind meets the test, I want to pass.
Right. That's the goal of this class, really, is to help be more understanding. And you're going to be doing a lot of study and research on your own. Hopefully, this will help you pass the test.
So
And I
think
appreciate what Dee said. I think towards the beginning of the class, she realized that, a lot of things in the slide are more like PMBOK. And so if you're reading PMBOK and also Rita, I think explains things a lot better than PMBOK does. PMBOK's kind of dry principles, concepts and stuff. And that, yeah, PMBOK's dry. So hopefully the combination of PMBOK, Rita, and slides will help make some things make a little more sense. So here's the five. There's 5 things here, 5 conflict methods they talked about. So collaborating and problem solving, probably one of the best things to do. Let's all work together on this, come up with a good conclusion and a commitment to do something together. That's considered more a win-win situation. Compromising or reconciling, we're coming together, but we can't fully decide on one thing, so everyone's going to have to give up something. So it's considered a lose-lose situation. Maybe the best solution. You may not get everyone 100% agreement. Withdrawing or avoiding, it's kind of the idea, maybe this isn't the time to do this right now. I think we just table that for now and we'll talk about it later. It's not saying we won't deal with it, but we've got a critical deadline coming up. We may have to focus on that, getting that done, rather than Bill and Nancy are disagreeing about what to have for our offsite lunch or something.
Location.
Yeah. Smoothing or accommodating, it's the idea of really trying to emphasize what we agree on and build on that, and not stuff we differ on. Correcting and forcing, that's the idea of, okay, if we can't agree on it, we're going to do it this way.
Yeah,
That's what my manager was herding the cat. Okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. So with forcing, I'm winning, but the team may be losing me. They're all over the place.
Yeah, it's like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
What's gonna be?
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes it's a time thing. Guys, we can't be just discussing this more. We discussed it for 3 days now, and we're due to have this work done on Friday. Let's work on it. A little bit more about conflict management. A lot of times because we don't have the people or resources we need. Schedule priorities, sometimes work styles of people. And they believe that some conflicts are a good thing. A lot of times can help us come up with better ideas or better ways of doing the work, if managed properly, not as a message bomb turning into major conflicts. Often comes up because we don't have everything we need. And want to try to make it a team issue and not turn it into a personal issue. trying to focus on getting the problem solved. I like the bottom thing, it's always best to manage disagreements before they become World War III. Major conflicts, let the team really duking it out. It's kind of repeating some of the same things here. You want team members to be responsible for dealing with their own conflicts within the team. If it gets escalated to us, okay, we'll work on it, I'll try to resolve it. When we're listening to the people, we want to do active listening to understand what they're saying, and want to separate the issues from the personalities of your emotions. What's the problem we have with this work? Versus, I know you're ticked off or angry with Billy. So trying to separate those things out, understand both sides to the arguments, try to build on the common stuff that we agree on. Ideally, we'd like to get to a win-win. Not always possible. That's why a compromise may be the best thing, and sometimes maybe just directing them in those five steps. And then for us personally too, if they start lashing out at us, we're going to try to be professional and not take it personally. Tough sometimes, very tough sometimes. The outputs from this, maybe some new change requests, maybe some of those staff people. Change people, yeah. Sorry, Billy's not working out here. You send it back to his team and give me somebody else. Project management updates to resource management plans. We came up with some new roles or some new training that was needed. And maybe some updates to our baselines if we're going to have to get new people, go through the learning curve with them, like you mentioned with the churn in that company you worked at.
No, the guy, yeah.
Well, not just one guy, but when you lost a bunch of team members and a bunch of project managers. Updates to our documents, to our issue log, lessons learned, maybe some new things in our team assignments.
I'm trying to find how the output's the first one to change.
Oh, why is that? Why is that first in the list?
No, I think it's funny, it's the first time I've seen change, but it's the first one.
Yeah, usually it's
Develop team, well, what's output change?
change. Yeah, good point. Why is that the first one? Because Bill is not going to work out of this.
Yeah,
We
what's your output change?
change. Take him away, give me somebody new. A little bit about different leadership styles. I think we kind of touched on some of these already. But, directing, telling people what to do, facilitating, more like coordinating, working with the team, helping them work ideas up. Coaching, what I ended up doing quite a bit, mentoring and instructing, especially the new project managers. Supporting, being more like a consultant, providing help and assistance. Autocratic, well, that's pretty clear too. My way or the highway. We're going to do it this way. Consultative, it's kind of like facilitating the way, I think. Providing ideas, suggestions, kind of working through things.
None of them. Yeah, I've seen that.
You seen that?
Yeah. Oh, let's take in everybody's ideas and see
Oh,
what they think.
and not go with any of them. Oh boy,
What did that? I've seen it before.
yeah, that's too bad. Consensus, sometimes we have to kind of agree on something, even if it's not perfect. Delegating, a lot of times we can delegate to team members. One of my managers at UPS was what I call the ultimate Teflon man. Work would come into his office, seemed like it slid right off his desk and into our, hey guys, work on this.
He always said he does.
Just took right out of there. Laissez faire, actually, my last boss was kind of like that. She was very hands-off because she knew we were all program managers and we all knew what we were doing. She actually canceled our weekly staff meetings. And eventually I started setting up some one-on-one meetings with her because I wanted to know exactly what I was doing. I kind of felt she maybe didn't. I mean, she had the vague understanding, but I kind of felt sometimes she didn't know what I was doing. I kind of wanted her to know. So,
First, I had to go to my office and say, I can't eat this.
yeah,
Oh my God.
we wanted to meet every day with you.
You know,
Oh, look,
and it was never like on a schedule. Like, you got me?
Oh, impromptu.
Yeah, like that.
Oh, wow.
Right. So he said, okay, how about once a week? I said, fine.
Yeah.
I like you know what I found about the consensus that I like when the group makes a decision and it's a consensus, you know, and I have been in environments where everybody kind of like voted on it. What do you think? We're gonna have to go with something.
Yeah.
And, everybody feels a sense of accountability for it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And whatever the outcome is, it seems like people work towards that goal better. When
Yeah.
there's accountability, like,
General
well, we
agreement.
voted on it, we made the decision.
Yeah, yeah. It's not listed on here, but I think what you're talking about with your daily meetings with your boss reminds me of micromanaging.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you've got somebody always looking over your shoulder saying, what, can you tell me what you're doing? Wait a minute, I just told you yesterday what I was doing, I haven't changed my plan yet. Yeah, that can be over the top. It's not,
Kelly and Lady, she had, I had a girl, she was a direct report to me, it was the first time I ever had anybody report to me.
Mhm.
She told me later on down the line, we did not get along very well. Initially,
Mhm.
she had a strong, she was a deep personality like me, two
Yeah.
strong
Two dominant.
personalities, yeah. So, later down the line, you know, maybe a year or two, you know, she told me, I was a little more comfortable with each other, and she was like, you know what, she said, I thought you were my phone. I said, really? I said, no, it sounds too wrong, why would you say that? She said, because when you first started, you just be on my neck all the time. But I didn't think about it. I didn't think I was on the neck. I just wanted to make sure she was good.
Mhm.
And she said, but I found out that your style is that you just want to make sure you stay on me to ensure I was doing it right and I knew what to do. But she says later on, you were just totally hands off, like, and I was like, I never thought about that. I was, you know, I never saw myself. Now you don't see how you do
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And when she told me that, and I thought about it, I was like, well, that's my style even with my daughter. She says, Mom. I said, well, once you know how to do it, I don't say anything else to you. You know,
Right.
cleaning the dishes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's some different kinds of power that we can have as project managers. Formal, legitimate, it's based on our position or title. And the PMs, we're gonna do it this way. Chief Financial Officer wants that review every Friday. You know, it's,
Everything.
rewards and penalties, I think, are pretty clear. You do some good work, you can get rewarded for it, maybe some bonuses. We had what were called Bravo awards, which was sometimes just a simple little piece of paper saying, you know, the system engineering team liked your help on this, thank you. It was nice when there was like a gift card tied into it too, made it even a little nicer. Some people would actually, you know, post those or frame them, put them on their wall. Actually got some from the opposite ends of our programs. System engineering team liked my help for them, so we got one from them. Plus a gift certificate at a seafood restaurant that was up north. It was really good. We normally wouldn't go there because it's quite a ways from home, but it was really nice. On the other end, the deployment team, the team that worked with our customers, gave me a bravo for helping them too, because I helped them put their schedules together, particularly.
Wasn't in Primavera, I'm sure they praised you.
Yeah, they liked that. So rewards and penalties, I think, are pretty clear. Expert, I've got somebody that's got technical expert, a special area of industry, or project management expert. Okay, that'd be good reference. A referent, I think true more in Chicago before, but maybe still some now. He's the boss's nephew. Okay, that could be a problem.
And so be nice to him.
Yeah,
So tell the boss.
he's gonna tell Uncle Bill. I'm thinking on Bill.
Yeah, that's
That guy out there.
Uncle Bill.
I didn't say Aunt Mary or something like that. That doesn't.
No, it's because it's always Uncle Bill.
Uncle Bill.
That's sweet Aunt
Unfortunately,
Mary.
yeah. Queen Aunt Mary. She wouldn't do anything like
No,
that.
Uncle Bill would.
Rewards and recognition should be tied into performance. I was frustrated sometimes when it didn't seem like it was tied into performance. Should be based on some things. Maybe we've got some pre-established goals and stuff set up, so it's something we can measure. Should be within control of the team. We need to consider both individual cultural differences. We're not going to have a pig roast in Israel. or in some other countries for steak roast in Hindu sections of India, that kind of thing. Team and individual recognition. That's where I sometimes bristle at it, because sometimes we'd be working really good as individuals, we get a couple people slacking off, and if we're just rewarded as a team, well, those slackers are still getting the same benefit that we would. On the other hand, though, if we're doing really good and the team is tanking, not doing really well, I was working hard, you want the individuals. So I can see where that's a challenge sometimes to know what's the best way to do it. I think typically we're going to be doing more team recognition, but individual stuff becomes important too, especially if you got a couple slackers on the team that's dragging us down or not doing their share.
We let people, we had team recognition where the team has performed really well, but also have a thing where the team members voted on who was the individual in the team, individuals who did pretty well.
Oh,
Who they would
that's a
say
good
that,
sign.
who they said that they would like, they deserve an award, appreciation or something like that. So,
That's good.
but you let the team members do it.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Because they know who's really been working hard and helping the team get along. And probably also knew the slackers too, but if, that's really up to the manager or the team lead or the project manager to deal with the slackers.
You always know the slackers are.
Yeah. Usually pretty clear.
And it's like, oh gosh, don't give it to them.
A little bit about rewards too. They should be done on a timely basis. Don't wait 6 months to reward somebody if you can. So it's best doing that throughout the project. We got a little exercise here. We're going to match up things on the left and things on the right. Now, there's only four things on the right, so it's not going to be a perfect one-to-one match. I want every module to have a code walkthrough. I need to see the review sheets before I allow the work to proceed. Is that facilitating, directing, delegating? Yeah, it's directing. It's a good risk to consider. Does anyone have other concerns with this approach? Could be consensus, maybe facilitating too. We're going to try to perk ideas. You guys figure this out. Let me know what you decide.
Delegate.
Teflon, man.
Teflon.
Yes, we could skip that step. However, if things go wrong, we could lose 3 months of work and jeopardize the contract. We need a decision that everyone agrees with. Yeah. In this case, we didn't use coaching. I've got another set here. This time it's going to be 5-on-5. Formal, penalty, expert, referent, reward. You miss one more deadline, I will have to put you on probation. Yeah. That's why I think about the penalty box in hockey. Run to the penalty box now. Yeah, it's a silly request, but he's the boss's nephew.
Referent?
Yeah.
Uncle Bill nephew.
She has implemented wireless technology on several platforms. She's perfect for leading the architecture team. As project manager, I'm required to submit the test results to QA. Yeah, it gets formal. Using your title, your role, say this is what I want. You're our best consultant, so this year you're going to get a sizable raise.
Right.
Reward, yeah. There's a little handout on those 2 pages. Motivation. We got a lot on motivation here, which is mostly in Rita's book. You won't find this really in PMP, but there are questions about motivation on the exam. Why it's important? Because it can improve our productivity a lot of times. And if we're in a functional or weak organization, we may not have that bonus thing or raise that we can give to the people. So they may be on our team for a while, and then going back to a functional team or doing something else. We want to try to understand what motivates or demotivates different people. We've got 5 different theories here. And this might not be in your book. You may not have rooms in your slides. Because that was something I took.
Heard on it. That's why I heard it on.
I took these out.
Abraham Maslow.
Yeah, Abraham Maslow. And this is the one I kind of bristle with now because it's assuming people are getting better and better. Well, shootings and wars and everything, we know we're not all getting better and better. I think there's that capability. So this is a picture of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The idea that we have these basic, simple needs. We need water, food, sex. Next level will be safety needs.
That line doesn't say sex. Look at it. No,
Does it fit in?
never mind.
Oh,
I'll send it to you.
okay.
And we both like, no, why isn't it?
In your books, the third level may not show up real well. It's supposed to be love/belonging. Friendship, family, good intimacy, sexually. Esteem, next level up. Okay, we're more confident, got the respect of others, build on that. And self-actualization.
It's at the top.
That's the top. That's
Yeah.
totally creative. Very good, thanks. Again, I think the assumption, and actually I read some critique of this just recently in a Christian article that was saying, that's not the way it is. We all are fallen creatures and we've got the potential to do some of these things. But as we know, with shootings and wars and fighting, we don't always do it that way. Würzburg's motivational theory kind of breaks things down into two categories, what they call hygiene factors, and these things that will give us general satisfaction. Got a job, and job security, good working conditions, maybe good life balance in my work. Good things. Now, if I don't have these, there could be some dissatisfaction. Motivational factors that are a sense of personal achievement, being recognized for doing good work, maybe some challenging things that we really like to do, opportunity for advancement. So those kinds of things is us being more of the motivational factors. McGregor's theory of X and Y, I can't learn about this, I think the UPS did. And these are the extremes. Theory X is assuming everyone's lazy, they're bums, gotta keep on all the time, gotta keep pushing them, gotta micromanage them, because otherwise you're just gonna slack off. And the opposite extreme is, well, people can be creative and imaginative, do good work, we give them a good environment to do that, they'll go for it. I think most places are somewhere in between. UPS, though, I used to think that all our truck driving managers were theory X people. My way or the highway. You either do it my way or you're out of here. In reality, at UPS, people rarely get fired unless they raped somebody or stole packages.
Packages get you out quick. Huh?
Yeah. But the threat was there all the time. So they were really managing people more than theory X. And keep pushing, otherwise they're just going to slack off. I'm using slack on it. I'm going to use that.
That's because we're talking about directing people.
Yeah. It's kind of another picture of the same thing, spelling out McGregor's X and Y theories. Rome's expectancy theory, which may or may not be your slides. Oh, yours? Yeah. Okay, good. It wasn't in some of the books, that's why I bring those extra copies. People tend to be highly productive and motivated if they know that what they're doing is going to lead to success, and then personally, and they'll get rewarded for it. So they know if they do excellent work, there's that idea that, oh, it's going to be good for me, I'm going to get something out of it. The other side of it, though, is if they look down at there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and they don't see it getting better, they might tend to drop off.
Yeah.
McClellan's theory of needs, or sometimes called acquired needs theory. I like this because it's talking about achievement, affiliation, and power not in the negative sense here, I think it's in a good sense. So achievement, people like to do good work and be recognized for it. Okay? Get a lot of attaboys. I'm kind of like that. I like to get attaboys. If I got attaboys, I'm probably going to do better or try to do more. Affiliation, I fall into this sometimes too, being a groupie. I'll be a groupie, do the work with the team. Glad to be interacting with a lot of different people. So I may be looking more for just team approval, things like that, rather than getting the individual recognition. power, and I think this is power in a good sense. People like to organize, direct things in a good way, have this vision of how we can do things better, how we can work together. So it's not talking about absolute power, corrupting absolutely, that kind of thing, but just good ways of bringing people together and organizing. Meeting management. Talked about this a few other times. We should have a specific policy for it. Clear need to have the meeting, not the daily meetings with the boss, or meetings that go on and on and on. Clear purpose for that, specific agenda, usually good start and end dates for it. Get the meetings minutes out right away and any follow-up actions or assignments made. That's where we learned in my program reviews when we started at UPS, protocol, the other two. Some of the meetings went 3.5 hours for the weekly staff meetings. And a lot of what it was a couple of project managers bragging about how well their project was going. That's fine. We didn't need to spend half hour for you talking about it, giving us all the details. Again, this was a status meeting. We eventually got a little bit wiser and the project's going well, great, keep going. You're having trouble with your project, let's talk about it, let's figure out what resources we can give you or how we can escalate it to get some help for you. So the meetings went from 3.5 hours down to 1.5 hours.
Which is reasonable.
Yeah. A part of it too had to be we were shrinking.
Oh.
Programs weren't so big, but was still the focus. That focus change was really good.
You remember when you first opened up your computer, had all those folders, chronological order? My boss called me. That was PowerPoint, and we was going. Oh.
Is these the impromptu meetings?
No,
Oh,
this is like, but I'm serious. The meetings will go.
On and on.
A lot of stuff again. It was material. We were all there. Everybody's engaged in what's going on. There was no new information, no progress necessarily that we didn't already know because it was only a small team, you know. And we had it. Right. I mean, PowerPoint and I'm like.
One of those where we need to discuss what we need these meetings for. Yeah.
I say meetings like so far off the agenda.
Yeah. We get derailed. Don't have somebody that can really
Bring
keep
it back.
on
Yeah.
the agenda on what's important to cover. So 9.6 then is going to be control resources. So the big plan is going to feed into this, these various documents, lessons learned, issue log, the physical resource assignments, and the schedule, resource breakdown structure, resource requirements, risk register. We're monitoring control now, so we got a lot of work performance information. We're moving along. We do a lot of plan versus actual kinds of things. If we got contracts or agreements in place, those can feed into this. Especially if we've got third-party vendors that are supplying work for us.
Yes,
What's that? Service level agreements, yeah.
And then what procurement will play a big role in this control of resources part too, because you have to procure, I mean, if it's not a human resource, right?
Sure, I mean, we could be talking about, maybe we've got some contractors in-house or outside group that's doing work for us, contractors. It could be equipment. We'll talk about when we get to procurement. Do we buy this piece of equipment or do we rent it? We'll look at those kinds of decisions. And we have it in-house because we have some risks involved. Like it's an old tractor and we know it might break down. So we set up a lease, potential lease for loaning some tractors or something for a while. Tools techniques, data analysis, a lot of this kind of just looking at our performance and how we're doing, maybe some trends. If we see we're getting off track on either schedule or cost. Different ways of doing the work, so alternatives. We'll be using our interpersonal and team skills. We'll be doing some negotiating, influence. We may use some of those tools in the project management information system. So talking about resources, we're probably talking about hours of work, that kind of thing. Maybe the schedules too. Problem solving. think these kind of have sort of a logical flow, hopefully. So we're gonna identify problems, define it a little bit better, investigate it, do some analysis of it, come up with a solution, and we'll use that solution, check it out, see if it's working, it's doing what we thought it would. Outputs of this, work performance information, can be change requests, updates to the project management plans, and just baselines, updates to a lot of these documents. These are kind of the same documents we pulled in, but now we're probably adding to the assumptions and issues, new lessons learned from this section of the project. Something maybe more details on our physical requirements, physical resource requirements. And that's resource management. And it's 12:52. So I don't think we're going to get to communications today. Okay. Do you want a quick break? And then I think we'll go through the resource quiz together. I'm okay with, it's not a slip, but you know, the last couple classes we had some flexibility, so the fact that we didn't get to communication stage, okay, we'll start with that on Saturday.
Exactly. Now, you know what, I was actually, I'm glad you brought it up, I was looking at the schedule, so this class was to run through the ninth, right? Which is this Saturday.
Originally, when we were gonna start the week earlier,
So when do we end?
Monday the 11th,
So that's the last.
that's
class.
the last class.
You know, I was looking at it, so we're done. Oh.
Because originally we were gonna start a week earlier, but then
Right.
we couldn't
But
get the,
yeah, then you have babysitting.
Yeah.
Okay, so Monday is the last class for project management.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool.
so
Because I was looking and I was putting it down, I was like, is my last class Monday or is it supposed to be on Saturday?
that's why I gave you that revised schedule. too,
Yeah,
because
I saw it, but
actually highlighted in it, today's Thursday, and the very last class would be Monday.
time haven't.
So what about those other pieces, Steve?
Yeah.
Agile, the ITIL, the infrastructure, big data. You know anything about those?
They're good classes.
Hmm.
They're good classes. As far as schedule, I don't know when they're gonna be scheduled, that kind of thing. I know on Saturdays when we're meeting in here across the hall, we got a business analysis class going on. Paul usually kind of structures when the classes will be.
Okay.
So even though from your caseworker, you may get this plan, very often it'll be modified as we move along.
Okay.
You know, if it's only one person per class, maybe you wouldn't have it right away, but you get a couple more people into it. So
Was any of those things I mentioned a part of yours?
Yeah, so I have project management for PMP certification. I got Microsoft Project 2016. I have Agile and Scrum. I have business analysis and requirement analysis. And big data analytics and predictive analysis. ASQ certified Six Sigma Green Belt. So I'm here to May.
you get you get quality in there too.
Yep, I'm here to May.
Okay.
So that was my structure.
I gotta look at mine again,
I don't know what happened to stuff there, so. I don't, of course, Microsoft Project, I just took that just to know it better.
Yeah, and that's a relatively simple class. I think it's 8 hours, sometimes taught on a Saturday.
Okay, is it?
And it's just more hands-on experience with using Microsoft Project.
Agile and Scrum, so I guess I'll be more to Agile. Business analysis and requirement analysis, UML rationale, requisite pro, I don't know what that is.
The big data, I definitely want.
I got big data analytics and predictive analysis. And then I got the Six Sigmas. How long are you here until when?
I have to look at my schedule, but
We just started though, right? So.
Yeah.
probably
well,
like-
actually, when he gave me the date for the 19th, told me that it started the week before. So that was the first conversation. And when I went through the formality with, reviewing the institutions that we were gonna consider, they gave me two start dates, the 7th and the 14th. So the 14th was here, and I was sending him an email because I told him that I internally had decided I was gonna go with this organization,
Mhm.
but I hadn't heard from them. So I wanted a new schedule from him,
Uh-huh.
and the same time I sent him the email, he was sending me, he called me on the phone. So I thought he was replying or responding to my email, but he wasn't. He was calling me
Yeah.
to ask me about it. And I asked him if he got my email, he opened up, the conversation went from there. So basically, he told me I could start on the 19th, but he let me know that I was basically, like, going to class, because I don't know what the next PMP class was gonna start, but if I had to wait, I don't know when I'm gonna be off, probably be months.
It could be. Sometimes I've got a couple classes going on at the same time, but it might be logistically different too. If I got a class in Gurney, you probably want to go up there.
So I wouldn't want to do that.
Class here, Schaumburg, I mean, some students are fine with either here or Schaumburg, because they're not that far apart. But, yeah, you know, what Paul's doing is kind of adjusting things for the group of students to try to get, like right now, class across the way, I think has 3 students. I mean, that Saturday class across from us has actually 10 students. That's a pretty big class. Ideally, you can bring more people together. It's good. For a couple of reasons, both from his side, you know, you want to have a lot of one-on-one classes, small classes.
So can I say to him, and I'm asking you directly,
Mm-hmm.
for example, I have to look at what I have at home. Once I do that, if, for example, some of the ones that I was interested in, let's say they're not gonna focus on one student, but he's got some other things going on that might have more, be as interesting. And the only thing I definitely want to have is the big data.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if the predictive piece is part of it, but I definitely want the big data.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the agile,
Yeah.
and then we talked about the project professional. So, I mean, it's not online, I'll take that
Mm-hmm.
compared to, say, some of the other stuff that if it's not gonna go in the project professional, then I'll take that.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to some of the other stuff, but, those are some of the ones that I feel like are going to help me more understand where my objective and where I'm going.
Uh-huh.
I'm shooting an email.
Okay. Okay, because I don't want to give it to them without a receipt. I want a record that it was given to me. Okay, all right. This one. Yeah, I found it.
There's some terms in there that you probably saw way, way back at the beginning about matrix and diverse styles of
Yeah, I was looking at those. I was like, wow, that was a couple chapters ago.
first day, actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We talked about,
Yeah.
it used to be there were like 5 main categories that they used in the last edition. So it was functional, okay, work for the engineering boss, that's it, I just had one boss. Matrix, 3 levels of matrix, so weak, strong, weak, mixed, and
Moderate,
strong.
strong, yeah.
And then what they call project types. In the new version, they've got a longer list, and I just gave you a handout on that, where we don't specifically talk about project types, they talk about project-oriented organizations, which is actually kind of similar. And then some ad hoc things, various, they actually listed up 7 or 8, 9 different types of organizations.
I don't remember, but yeah, I don't remember them all, but I
Yeah,
just know I'm familiar because I come from project ties or project
Project-oriented, yeah.
oriented,
Mhm.
environment, so that's something John has.
Yeah.
Highly project.
Project focused, yeah.
Yeah, and so, like for this one, I guess we were talking about it when we were I would think that one, what impact does the matrix organization have on project team development?
Mhm.
I would think it's simplified.
So if you've got a matrix organization, you've got two bosses, and you're working on projects part of the time, maybe working functional team part of the time. That,
Complicated.
that actually can complicate it. Yeah. So I'll let you do number 3 when we get there. I'll do number 1, and then you can do number 2. Human Resource Administration's primary responsibility, this is kind of like a duh question in a way, but the HR department. So B is going to be the answer to it.
Yeah, because I was like, is this a trick question?
Yeah. That's why sometimes, exam hint, don't try to think too much into it.
Okay.
Assuming is one of the things that gets us in trouble too. I assume they meant such and such. Well, it doesn't say it. You can't usually assume that.
Project management has the most influence in, let's say, functional organization.
Functional is where the functional manager is really in charge. And we are not much in charge normally. We might assist the functional manager in doing a project or something.
So with balance matrix.
Balance is kind of that of the matrix. You just mentioned this while you're out of the office. Strong matrix, we have the most influence and control. Balance matrix, we and the functional manager kind of equal level sharing things. Weak matrix is more like a functional organization, so functional manager is still mostly in charge there. We might have to beg him for people or keep in mind. So if a strong matrix is going to be the one where we've got the most influence.
Right.
Number 3, what impact does the matrix organization have on project team development? And I put, it's B, complicates team development, but I do have a question about that.
Yeah, because we were just talking about this, because in a matrix organization, you still have two bosses, you have your functional manager and your project manager. And so you're going to come and go from project teams. If it had talked about
What if it's a strong matrix?
a strong matrix, you still have two bosses. And you may still bounce over to a project team, maybe go back to your functional team. Project manager, we have more influence there, more control perhaps, but it's still going to complicate things. Okay, when you got two bosses and you're bouncing back and forth, it can be a problem.
I'm still, who's responsible for my bonus?
Yeah, and if you got a functional manager signing that bonus check or giving you the raise and stuff.
B is the board.
B is the board. Complicates team development. Staff may be acquired from which of the following sources? External organizations, staff identified in an accepted proposal, pre-assigned, functional departments, A and C or A, B, and C. It's going to be A, B, and C. So all the above, basically. That's a different way of saying it. Answer E is good for that.
Legitimate power is power.
And the way they define it, that's more like the expertise kind of approach. We had that woman that had done many successful projects. It would be great for leading the architecture team.
So this would be the formal position A.
Yeah, formal position in the organization. We are the project managers, therefore we'll do it this way. We're VP of Finance. I need those finance reports.
Okay, the project resource management process. The project resource management process includes all steps.
Yeah, he's correct. It's me. Although I was realizing in the one I'm showing up here, it still said acquire project team. You should just say acquire resources. Did it say that in your?
It say acquire resources.
Okay, this is an older one here that I can't change in this view, so I won't worry about it for now. Forcing as a means to manage conflict. A little line in there. Um, Losing my place again. Forcing really is exerting one's view at the potential expense of another party. So A is a good answer for that one.
A RAM, an acronym for Tool Technique Used in Plan Resource Management, stands for really all of the above, but I'm.
Random access memory. I like the fact that that's in there. Oh, that's a RAM, yeah.
Responsibility assignment.
Yeah, C is the right answer. I like having RAM in there. I mean, random access one.
Number 9, salary and security can be dissatisfiers, not motivators themselves. This is an example. I think it's Greg or Kurt's.
Gregor is the X and Y thing. People are lazy or people are wonderful. And
Okay, across that one. Mass law is the hierarchy. Hertzberg?
yeah, it's Hertzberg. Constraints that impact the plan resource management process do not include, actually the first one, impacts of unsatisfactory performance appraisals. And that's assuming that we're in the planning stage. The other things are there now. If we'd said that performance appraisals from past projects, then it'd make it a little bit more confusing. But at this point, we're just starting from planning here. So the other three are good. We probably haven't done any appraisals on our people yet because we haven't done any work yet.
11. Which of the following is not a tool technique management qualification?
Actually, boy, I'm using an old template here because I've got the wrong thing in it. It had observations and conversation, which was replaced by influencing. Managing the team, well, influencing may be a good thing to do. This is not a tool and technique. So which one would not be a thing that we're doing? Yeah, C is actually an input. So C is the one that team performance assessments is an input into that managed team.
So team performance assessment would not be a part of it?
It's an input. It's not a tool and technique. So it's input into managing the team.
Types and quantities of resources required for each work package activity is type and quantity. D is found in the process of estimating activity resources.
Yep, that's correct. I got a completely old one here, so I got a different question.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is not among tool techniques of developing the co-location?
That could be. Ground rules are good. Oh, you don't have ground rules in yours probably. Rewards and recognition is good. Team building activities. Staffing management plan is not a specific part of developing the team.
So why would co-location be a tool?
If we're going to have everybody working in the same place, bring them together in one room, or sometimes it's called a war room or something like that. That's one of our ways of working the team together. So it's kind of seeing as that kind of thing.
14, important interpersonal skills the project manager uses to interact with the project team and stakeholders. Leadership and team building, motivation for influencing decision making, political and cultural awareness, education. Important parts of the project interact with the project team. Motivation. I'd say all of the above.
Yep, that's all the above. Co-location can be, oops. Team members are moved to the same physical location for the life of the project. Active team members may be at different locations but meet often. Project team war room is established where the team members can meet and work. So these answers, A and C, are good. So D is a good answer for that one.
Each of the following is best for handling cross-functional project needs for large, complex projects. Okay,
Yeah, A is good. And this is one case where B and C have nothing to do with what kind of organization we're in. Okay. Coordinator, expediter, that's nice.
17, acquire resources, tools, and techniques include E, all of the above.
Yeah, all the above is correct. The correct order of Tuckman's 4 team development model stages is adjoining the last stage, so there's actually 5, but the main 4 is letter C, forming, storming, norming, performing.
the 5 general conflict resolution include all of the above.
Yep, all the above is correct.
20, the team charter contains D, all of the above.
Yep, that's correct.
This test fooling us that we're gonna do a lot of the, now I don't mean fooling us, but is there just a good probability that a lot of the questions on the original exam are going to be all of the above and that kind of thing?
No, unfortunately, we've got, actually, I've heard this from a few people, we've got too many all the above answers in here. In the exam, you'll have some, but not as many as we've got in our quizzes. And actually, when you do fast track, you probably won't see too many out there either. So yeah, not that many. And a lot of cases, we got 5 answers. You won't have 5 answers. It's always going to be 4. That's one of my goals is to actually update these quizzes a little bit more and take that 5th thing out of there and shrink it down to 4. And also, the true and false questions. We got a couple of those in ours. We're going to have 4 answers in the exam, so they may have a true and false type question, but they'll have to have 4 variations to get that to work. You might say always this way, generally this way, never this way. Or something, yeah, I know. There'll be some questions of that nature, but they have to have 4 answers for it.
Okay.
So it won't be like our simple true or false.
I don't know. Who did the last one? Did I do that? Yeah, I did the last one.
Okay, so it's my turn. One example of a RAM which links the project team members to the project work that needs to be done is called a RACI, Responsible Accountable Consult Conform chart. So B is the answer.
In which type of organization is team building likely to be the most difficult? I would say
Functional, I work for one boss. I'm in the engineering department. That's all I'm concerned about. I just work for him or her. It's those mixed organizations, the matrix types that are going to be more difficult ones. So that's where we may be coming and going from projects, going back to our functional team. So team building is going to be more difficult.
I was thinking more like we only do one thing here.
Number 23. Which of the following statements concerning compromise and conflict resolution is false? Neither party wins, but both parties usually get some degree of satisfaction. Important aspects of the project may be hindered in order to achieve personal objectives. Compromise is generally considered definitive resolution is A.
Either party wins, both parties usually get some degree of satisfaction. No.
Compromise.
Compromise, is that false?
Oh, it's false. Oh,
Yeah, the question is which one is false?
oh, which one is false? I would say false is that's not the C.
C, did you say? Well, compromise, and if you recall that earlier we talked about, if we can collaborate, come up with a solution everyone agrees on, that's great. Compromise, both people had to give up something, or both groups had to give up something. So it's lose-lose, that is a lose-lose situation. Compromise. D, definitive resolution is seldom achieved. It's some solution.
Oh, a definitive.
Yeah, we came up with some solution, but maybe not the perfect thing. Which of the following is part of the expectancy theory of motivation? Clear, specific, challenging goals generally motivate team members. Project managers should ensure that tasks assigned to the project participants match their skills and organizational climate is conducive to helping them meet their needs, achieving a sense of competency. Sounds good, but I don't think it's that theory. People tend to be highly productive and motivated if they believe their efforts will lead to successful results and the success will lead to personal rewards. But that is true. So C is true. The first two are not necessary. So in this case, C is going to be the best answer for that.
25. Yes, histogram is commonly used to graphically display past or forecasted before to usage out.
Yep, histogram is correct.
Control resources, tools, and techniques include all the above.
All the above is correct. Considerations in selecting staff from a resource pool should include previous experience, ability, availability, personal interests, all the above. Yep, all the above is a good one for that too.
How does personal interest play in that? I don't get that.
Um,
What would your personal interest impact in choosing to work on the team? I guess it's easier, and I'm more concerned about your technical skills.
I think it's a consideration. It's not saying that has to be perfect same. This person likes to troubleshoot software problems. Okay, maybe it's a good person to have on the team. Maybe a loner, introvert, but they're really good at fixing stuff. Or maybe we need somebody like that on the team.
The inputs to activity all except published estimating data.
Yeah.
What does that have to do?
I don't know.
Good guess there.
Yeah. 29. Which of the following is not a tool in technique of employee management? There's none of them. I thought,
The customer here that seems like they might not fit, but
and I say,
Think of tool and technique for planning. our plan.
It's not a tool. Negotiation.
Yeah, negotiation is not a part of our plan. The plan, we'll be negotiating later, for sure, but not up front.
So, organizational theory, now, I was thinking hierarchical chart, but I could see that. But the organizational theory, I mean,
That was something that we had in one of the slides, I think, one of those upfront things. Uh, about how does this organization work? In other words, are we set up as a functional organization, or are we more mixed matrix kind of thing? Are we an agile organization where we got teams that work together all the time and they're co-located and they just do things a certain way?
No, it's one
Sorry, is it my turn? Okay. Senior management asks the project manager how the project would be affected if two resources were removed from the project. The calculated response, the project manager should perform fast tracking, schedule compression, uh, resource leveling, or schedule modeling. In this case, depending on where these two resources are, it may impact us or may not. So what we first need to do is really model the schedule again to see, if they're not on critical path work, okay, maybe it won't have an effect. If they are critical path and key resources, well, yeah, that's going to affect us. So the first thing we need to do is like revisit the schedule and see what this is going to do to us.
is a model.
So modeling.
You are managing a project, you find that you need to apply resource level. Which of the following tools can help you identify resources that are over allocated? Wouldn't the network diagram do that?
That's going to show us the schedule. We had a little example of this in the slides today. We're showing the hours by week for whatever it was. I don't know if they're designers or something.
Okay, so that means we assign resources, assign the data.
That's going to be more like an org chart. Resource histogram was the one that showed, hours per week. And we had that real heavy January way up there, but everything else was a little bit lower. So we thought using that would help us figure out, okay, if we need to kind of balance this work off a little bit more. Otherwise, that second week, we're going to need 10 or more people to get that work done maybe in less than time. So a resource histogram will help us with that.
32. Ground rules are established to set clear expectations regarding acceptable behavior by the project team members. Whose responsibility is it to enforce ground rules? Project manager?
Ground rules is kind of like we had team charter and stuff.
See all the project team
Yeah.
members. I was thinking about when you say enforce, like, yeah.
Yeah, so the people doing the work.
Good to see.
Yeah, C
Yes.
is a good answer. Yeah. As you walk into your office, you receive an email from the sponsor notifying you that the audit team will be soon in your office to start a risk audit on your project. Next email you receive has been forwarded to you and involves conflict between two team members. You immediately are bombarded with phone calls from both parties with the email to the email complaining about the other. Which conflict resolution technique would you immediately use with the team members?
That's easy.
This is one, we got the audit, it's about to start.
Right.
Let's table that. We'll come back to that later. So avoiding is the one we went with here.
All right. Collaborate, problem solve involves. So I'm going to go with any multiple views.
Sorry, you may not have been looking at what I had on the screen, but I had an old quiz.
No, I just looked, I'm like, oh, the answers are up there.
Yeah, and some of the questions have changed. This is one that I did make some updates to. And, unfortunately, my little stick that had these on there is broken. And I've been posting them to our Google Drive, but apparently I didn't post the newest one for that, so I gotta update that.
So are we making the kind of scheduled time in the class we should be on test?
With the flexibility we got built in, I think we're okay. So, yeah, we didn't cover communication, but we'll start with communication on Saturday.
Are we just supposed to cover both of those that today as well?
Yeah. But then we did the ethics quiz today too, so that pushed us back a little bit.
I got a question for you.
Uh-huh.